Chapter 470 Lil, Misorder, Feng Shixiang is well informed. Do you recognize this formation? Li Shu looked from a distance at Turtle Island and said quietly. Beside him was a middle-aged person named Feng Bao. Astonishment showed on his face. It seems a bit like the meridional azure ether formation of Azure Sky Sect. Is Turtle Island owned by a disciple of Azure Sky Sect? Azure Sky Sect? Azure Sky is a powerful seal cultivator sect that is very powerful in Black Nightia. They do not have many disciples, but they are most skilled in forging and seal creating, so the sect is extremely rich. What is most wondrous about Azure Sky Sect is the sect-protecting formation, called the Meridional Azure Ether Formation. It is extremely powerful, Feng Bai explained. Black Nightia? Li Shu was slightly shocked. So far away? And very, very far. Feng Bai nodded. Why did they run to Cloud Sea Jie? Li Shu's brow creased. I do not know that. Feng Bai smiled and said, What is Shitty worried about? According to what I know, the disciples of Azure Sky Sect are skilled in forging and seals, but they are peaceful and rarely enter conflicts against others. Then it's strange, Li Shu said as he shook his head. Shixiang may not know this. While these people from Turtle Island do not cause conflicts, they are not peaceful people. Their moves are vicious and decisive, and the battalion they have are clearly veterans that have been on the battlefield. They would be hard to deal with. There's something like that? Feng Bao said in wonder, Then I wouldn't know. Azure Sky Sect is too distant from us. It would require several years to go and investigate. I had only seen accounts of this formation by coincidence. Li Shu seemed to be pondering something and did not speak. Sounds of violent explosions came from Turtle Island occasionally, the lights of all kinds of spells illuminating the sky. The Tian family's explosive barrage of attacks was still continuing. Suddenly, Feng Bao made a light sound. The formation has been penetrated? Li Shu woke up with shock and looked over. The Tian family battalions that had been packed in the sky above Turtle Island were flowing furiously towards Turtle Island. Had the formation of Turtle Island fallen? What? Ma Fan thought that he had heard it wrong. Beside him, Lei Peng, Nian Lu and the others were frozen on their spots. Didn't hear clearly? I said you can solve this problem yourselves. Gong Sun Cha showed a harmless smile. You have the ability to solve a battle of this level by yourselves. Finishing, he shrugged, spread his hands, and looked away at ease. Ma Fan instantly became frantic. His first response was, Damn it, which dumbass had offended Lil Miss? Dragging everyone down to feel the pain. It wasn't the first time something like this occurred. Once someone caused Lil Miss to show this demonic smile, what would follow would cause the Vermilion Bird Camp to be tormented together. When it was serious, even Guard Camp was unable to avoid the calamity. Darren, this is not possible. Ma Fan lowered his voice and said fawningly, Without you, we are blind. You are the bright light in the middle of the great sea, our helmsman. Only on your hands can we express our greatest power. You are our spine. We can lack anyone, but how can we lack you? Even Boss has said you are a gold battle general. Miss smiled slightly bashfully as though he was embarrassed at hearing Ma Fan's undisguised flattery, yet Ma Fan and the others instantly had a foreboding feeling. Your flattery is slightly sickening but mostly truth. Miss smiled bashfully. Yes. The foreboding feeling increased, but Ma Fan and the others hurriedly nodded in agreement. But I am a gold battle general, that Tian family, at most it is a silver battle general. It is worth of my attention. Miss smiled brightly, his face like a flower, and showed 2 rows of white teeth. You have stayed with me for this long. If you can't even kill a silver battle general, then you might as well cut your own necks. Miss smiled prettily again, and everyone felt their backs dampen with cold sweat. I'm not joking. So, Miss really wasn't joking. Stumbling and crawling out of Lil Miss place, everyone huddled together and started to discuss. No way Miss wants to play us to death? Someone wailed. Don't cry, think of a solution. If we really can't kill the Tian family, wait for it. If we don't cut our own necks, Miss will hand us the blade. Or he might just snap it. That is also possible. Hazy motioned. Everyone shuddered in unison. Even a fearless person like Lei Peng was slightly white. Especially when the scene of Lil Miss holding a blade as he smiled shyly appeared in their minds. Uncontrollably, they all shook again. Brothers! If the Tian family doesn't die, then we will die. A brother's face was full of grief and excitement. Kill the Tian family. Kill him. Kill him. Everyone's eyes were red as their voices almost blew off the roof of the building. When the noise quieted, Lei Peng's voice rumbled, "Old Fan, Iran, you two have the most ideas. Quick, think of something." The other people looked at Ma Fan and Wei Ran. In the eyes of everyone, these two were the best at strategizing in Vermilion Bird Camp. Ma Fan had been the core before and with his personality preferred to use his cunning rather than his blade. Wei Ran was not as smart as Ma Fan, but he was a reliable person that was widely trusted. The first to speak was Wei Ran. He said in a low voice, "It is not enough to complete this with just our Vermilion Bird Camp. Defeating them is easy, but Lil Miss wants us to kill them. This is slightly difficult. Most importantly, we cannot let any of them escape." Ma Fan's eyes lit up. "Why don't we use a bolt the door to beat the dog tactic?" Bolt the door to beat the dog? We'll let them in and then close the formation of the island. This way they cannot escape. Ma Fan's eyes were bright. This idea is good. Wei Ran clapped his hands in excitement. The other people also showed excitement. All of them had lots of battle experience, but none of them had experienced being in charge before. Someone quickly added, "Then we have to be careful. If the defeated battle Xiao of the Tian family damages the Ling fields of the island, yes. Ling Miss is not good to offend, and we can't touch boss. If boss comes back and sees serious damage, then we won't have a good outcome either. And we need to have enough manpower. It seems that we really have to ask guard camp for help." "Let's do this." Shu Long caressed the great black halberd in his hand. This great black halberd was even larger than the one he had formed from killing essence, and its shape was simpler. There was only a single spike that was shaped like a bird's head, and a dark red blade seemed to have been dyed in fresh blood. What was most eerie was the design, a blue-gray eye on the head of the halberd. From a distance, it looked like a black crow standing on top of a black stick. An intoxicated smile floated onto Shu Long's face as he gripped it in his hands. A feeling of intimacy came from the body of the halberd and made him feel as though it was his flesh and blood. All of the MO weapons in the Black Pond had used totem fragments. Each MO weapon seemed to be alive and caused each of them to have an unique presence. But the presence of the MO weapons were not like the intelligent presences of the talismans and flying swords, but were vicious and dark. It was possible to see their viciousness at a glance. The presence of the black halberd in Shu Long's hands was the most unique. There was no viciousness, just a barely discernible desolate presence. It may be due to fate that Owen received a MO weapon that was identical to the one he had formed from killing essence. It was a dark green spear. The body of the spear was streamlined and etched with complex patterns which made it feel comfortable in the hand. The shape of the green spear was unique. The spear was shaped like a ruler-straight green snake, and the head of the spear reached out of the snake's jaw. The eyes of the snake were eerily open. All 300 MO weapons had chosen their masters. The remaining people could only wait for a future round of forging. At the beginning, people were uncaring because no one had seen MO weapons before, but after the MO weapons came out, everyone had jealous eyes. Each MO weapon was like a piece of art, simple or exquisite. They all caused people's hearts to move. Shu Long raised his head. He saw every person that received a MO weapon were caressing their MO weapons in intoxication. He smiled imperceptibly, and then he hid away his smile under a serious expression. Just now, Ma Fan had sent a message explaining the situation outside and also describing their plan. Shu Long did not know why Lil Miss Darren did not act, but he knew that since Lil Miss Darren sent down the order, it could not be changed. Lil Miss Darren rarely directed guard camp directly, but that did not lessen his authority or legitimacy of his orders. He did not learn battle tactics from Lil Miss Darren, and was instead taught by that mysterious person. He did not have any objections to Ma Fan's plan. This plan was actually very good. Okay, clean up and prepare to go. Let them see the power of our guard camp. Shu Long's voice spread into the entire mountain cave. His voice was full of bravado. Receiving the MO weapons, guard camp were like tigers that had wings. The large formation in front of them had suddenly opened. The fertile turtle island was like an inviting female, with legs spread in front of them. Tian Hengbo was full of joy. His already bloodshot eyes murderous as he shouted, "Kill!" The 6 Jindan changed out at the front. The 2 battalions behind them seemed full of adrenaline as they furiously howled and charged with vicious expressions. They feared being slower than the others. The Tian family was like a flood bursting the dam, unable to be stopped. Ling fields appeared in everyone's vision as though they were able to reach out and touch them. Everyone couldn't help but become excited. These Ling fields were going to belong to the Tian family. Possessing Turtle Island, the Tian family would become even stronger. And the service they provided in this battle would allow them to receive enough benefits. No one could stop them. In reality, their breakthrough was unusually smooth. They did not encounter any resistance along the way. No, they did not encounter one person. Wait. The corner of Tian Hengbo's eyes jumped and his expression changed slightly. They didn't encounter one person? Where were the people? At this moment he saw something out of the corner of his eye. He stilled slightly and hurriedly turned around his face. In this moment, his pupils suddenly contracted and the blood drained from his face. Chapter 471, Perfect Execution. The sharp howls were like the wails of ghosts that tore through the air. The hum unique to the 3-section wave-killing charge caused people's scalps to tingle. The dense pack of sword shio were like a barrage of arrows that charged out. They struck as quick as lightning. Tian Hengbo paled greatly. He opened his mouth and wanted to remind everyone, but before he could make a sound, the sword shio of Turtle Island had reached them. Bam! Nearby a Tian family disciple's Ling armor shattered into countless pieces. The sword energy flashed across this disciple's neck with its remaining power, like a knife slicing tofu. A head flew into the sky. Tian Hengbo even saw the shock on the face of the Tian family disciple. Pia pia pia. Caught off guard, the combat shio of the Tian family were struck by the sword lights. The 3rd-grade Ling armor they wore was as fragile as papier-mâché in front of the others' sharp sword energies and shattered, blood to spray everywhere. In what seemed like a blink of the eye, hundreds of Tian family disciples were slaughtered by the sword lights. The troops instantly became chaotic. The other was like a burning blade slicing through butter and created a vast corridor of blood among the ranks of the Tian family. In this bloody passage of 20 zhang wide, the blood and flesh of the Tian family disciples sprayed and they all died standing where they were. Seeing the Tian family disciples die in front of him, Tian Hengbo's eyes filled with blood. The murderousness and viciousness in his chest was like a burning flame. Kill them! He seemed like furious lion that charged first at the sword shio. The other 5 Jindan beside him also let out angry shouts at the same time and charged with Tian Hengbo. In this chaotic battlefield, the 6 Jindan were like 6 dazzling suns. The presence they gave off was intimidating, and the presence of the 6 together overtook the Turtle Island sword shio. The disciples of the Tian family roared. Their morale that had been dampened by the sudden assault by Ma Fan's group now rose. The 6 Jindan were like 6 sharp arrows that were unstoppable. The other combat shio followed behind them, forming 6 streams that leapt at Ma Fan's group. The expressions of Ma Fan and the others changed slightly. They hadn't expected the other to have deployed 6 Jindan. For the present Turtle Island, 6 Jindan was enough to be fatal. If it was only the 6 Jindan, then he wasn't afraid. Their strength was enough to grind the Jindan to death. But the Jindan had so many normal combat shio as well, and these 6 Jindan were fearlessly charging at the very front. The situation had become troublesome. Ma Fan and the others knew if they allowed the other Jindan to charge like this, the other side would be in a frenzy. Even if they won, their side would be wounded heavily. But Darren and the others were not here. Wei Ran was the one best at maintaining his composure. Even though the situation was extremely urgent, his voice did not change at all. Withdraw inwards. Stretch the distance between their forces. Everyone was quick-witted, instantly reacting. They did not fight. Instead they turned and ran into the island. Seeing the Turtle Island sword Xiu running away, the morale of the Tian family combat increased and they howled as they chased. The fierce blow that they had just suffered was forgotten and all of them showed extreme excitement. One side was furiously feeling, and the other was furious pursuing. No one noticed that below them, a pair of eyes that flashed with purple energy and a vicious large bird was watching them. Ma Fan and the others were exceptionally fast. As the troop that had followed Zhou Mo the longest, retreat and escape was a class they had to take. In the past, when Zhou Mo and the other Jindan were present, they would help get rid of the Jindan, so Ma Fan and the others did not have many opportunities to face the Jindan head-on. Having 6 Jindan on their tail for the first time, they put all of their energy into running. Their sword lights were even faster than when they had just charged. But the other was still tightly following behind them, especially the 6 Jindan who were quickly closing the distance between them. The 6 Jindan gradually separated from the combat Xiu, but this distance was not enough. If they turned around and charged now, then they would be entangled in battle with the Jindan, and the combat Xiu would charge and tear them apart. Kill Jindan first. All divisions spread out. Lead them out and circle around. Ensure they pull away from all the damned cannon fodder. Ma Fan gritted out. The teamwork between these people showed at this time. The entire troop suddenly scattered like a flower blooming. This time, the Tian family combat Xiu were stunned. Who do they chase? Tian Hengbo's eyes were filled with blood as he chased the people at the very front. They looked like the leaders. Those sword Xiu had the highest cultivation of those he saw and should be the leaders of this group. The Jindan beside him hesitated and charged with Tian Hengbo. Tian Hengbo was Tian Yongqing's full-blooded brother, and ensuring Tian Hengbo's safety was one of their duties. The Tian family disciples behind them lacked orders and their ranks instantly became a mess. Many people scattered into small groups to chase the Turtle Island sword Xiu that were fleeing. The sky about Turtle Island instantly became a mess. Idiot! Tian Yi, who had not charged into Turtle Island, couldn't help but curse. He wasn't on good terms with Tian Hengbo. In his eyes, Tian Hengbo was a brute with courage but had no cunning. What made him the most discontent was that Tian Yongqing had assigned 6 Jindan to Tian Hengbo. His battalion only had 2 Jindan. This was something that the prideful Tian Yi could not accept. After swearing, Tian Yi smiled coldly and did not move. In reality, from the beginning to now, the enemy troops were undamaged. The seemingly chaotic scene was an illusion that they purposefully orchestrated. Watching the battle up until now, Tian Yi had a preliminary judgment. This was a troop that was very strong. Their charging strength was extremely strong, they had practiced tactics, and they were high cooperative. They could rival his own battalion. If there had to be a shortcoming, it was experts. He had not seen any of the experts in this troop. This caused him puzzlement. Tian Yongqing did not tell Tian Yi the battle plan. He had sent Tian Hengbo in hopes he could take the chance to get some service merit. Yet the development of events was not as smooth as Tian Yongqing and Tian Hengbo had expected. Tian Yi was not in a hurry. In his view, Tian Hengbo was a Jindan and had 5 Jindan protecting him, so safety was not a problem. As to losses, Tian Yi wanted Tian Hengbo to suffer as many casualties as possible. This could show just how strong Tian Yi was. With the skill level of this battalion, they most likely had planned follow-up moves. The Xiuzhe following behind Ma Fan and the others decreased. Even 3 Jindan had felt that chasing like this was not as satisfactory as going to kill enemies, so they went in search of other targets. These guys were not very powerful, but were very slippery when fleeing. After chasing for only a few moments, there were only 2 people left by Tian Hengbo. No one noticed the sword Xiu that were flying in all directions in the sky drew out long and strange curved paths. And the other end of these paths intersected at a place hidden from view. It was like the bloomed flower that was closing. Watching from a distance, Tian Yi seemed to detect something. His brow creased slightly. His eyes suddenly widened and his eyes showed shock. Heavens, how did they do it? Those complex curved lines only had one destination. How had they done this in such a complex environment? It was hard to imagine. But Tianye's face quickly changed. Not good. Tian Hengbo was in danger. In his field of vision, Tian Hengbo was lured by the other continuously closer to the intersection point. Tianyi was instantly panicked and shouted, "Advance!" The Xiozha of Tianyi battalion all paused. Didn't boss say they were going to wait here? Why were they advancing so suddenly? Tian Hengbo's side clearly had the advantage. Do you not have ears? Tianyi shouted angrily. Everyone seemed to wake up and flew towards Turtle Island. Seeing Tian Hengbo rushing nearer to the intersection point, Tianyi felt great panic. He had conflict with Tian Hengbo, but if Tian Hengbo died here, and he only looked on, then there would be great trouble when he returned to the clan. The present leader of the Tian family was Tian Yongqing. It was alright to get Tian Hengbo to lose face, but to have Tian Hengbo to lose his life. Yet from when Tian Hengbo had passed through the formation, Tianyi battalion had stayed at the back. When Tian Hengbo had charged into Turtle Island, Tianyi battalion had not moved a step forward. For the first time of his life, Tianyi hoped his prediction would not become reality. Ma Fan and the others raised their speed to the limits, the howling in the ears drowning out all other noise. They were fleeing for their lives. Jindan, what was chasing them were Jindan. Even if they were half a step into Jindan, when they were facing true Jindan Xiozha, they still felt a great pressure. Fortunately, they were not fighting by themselves. They were familiar with every inch of Turtle Island. The scenes rushing past underneath their feet indicated to them their position, and their eyes became bright. The howling was still in their ears. Yet at this time, their attention was unprecedentedly focused. A nondescript little hill passed by their feet. The eyes of Ma Fan's group lit up, all the Ling power in their bodies vibrating, their extreme speed increasing slightly. This was the moment. Light suddenly rose in the sky above them. The blinding light caused everything they saw to be a white daze. They forced themselves to tolerate the blinding light, their speed maintained as they continued to fly. A sword energy the width of a door brushed dangerously past Ma Fan's body and caused his hairs to stand. This was a signal. Ma Fan seemed to be suddenly situated inside a storm of enormous sword energies. The hum of sword energies filled his ears. The intimidating sword essences flashed past, and he would shake every time. This was the large sword energies that the 3-section wave killing charge used to face large-scale targets and experts. Each sword energy was made from the combined power of 3 sword Xiao. 100 large sword energies came from all directions and were as packed together as rain as they smashed into an area of 3 zhang around Tian Hengbo and the 2 Jindan. Clang. 100 large sword essences with unstoppable presence collided together. Collision, crumbling, fragmentation, explosion. A light even brighter than the one before exploded forth. The enormous wave of sound carried countless fragmented sword essences. Everywhere it passed, it caused people's minds to blank just like their vision. The entire battlefield became deathly silent. Chapter 472. The balance tilts no matter which side they were on. People were shocked at such a fearsome scene. This was a perfect operation. No matter if it was Ma Fan's team that had lured the enemy, or the 300 sword Xiao that had come from all directions and silently executed the ambush, including the coordination where the sword energies passed by with a distance of only a hair's thickness, it could all be called perfect. When 100 large sword energies exploded in such a small area, the presence produced was so terrifying that even the 2 Jindan did not manage to respond before being reduced to ash. Recovering from the enormous explosion, the reaction on the 2 sides was completely different. The Tian family disciples had dazed expressions. The abrupt change was like a punch that struck their head and stunned them. Many people did not know what had happened, and those with keen eyes felt their heads ring and turn blank. What followed were ashen faces. For Ma Fan and the others, even though this attack was filled with luck and was unable to be repeated, it inspired their morale. Ma Fan and Wei Ran felt their confidence increase. The hint of timidity that was caused by the absence of Lil, Miss also dissipated. Some of the sword shio of Vermilion Bird Camp still had disbelief on their faces. The actions they had planned and carried out had successfully ambushed and killed 2 Jindan. In a battlefield that was small and enclosed, the death of 2 Jindan could change many things. In this perfect operation, the ambush was the signal for the full-scale counterattack from Vermilion Bird Camp. When the Tian family disciples still had cluelessness on their faces, the sky full of sword hums were like fatal noises that sounded in unison. The large turtle island gave the Vermilion Bird Camp sword shio a large battlefield so they could continuously accelerate and charge. One side was confused and puzzled, the other had increased morale. The chaotic battlefield instantly became one-sided. Sprays of blood erupted, howls and people continuously fell down. There were Tian family disciples that resisted, but as the conflict between the two sides increased, their hearts became chilled. Hands holding 5th grade golden crystal sword, wearing 4th grade blue soul cold light armor, the Vermilion Bird Camp sword shio looked like rich tycoons facing the Tian family disciples that mostly wore 3rd grade Ling armor. When facing a sword shio that was outfitted like this, it would cause one to feel helpless from the bottom of their hearts. If the other's sword strike did not kill them, it would wound them, and they would need to attack 3 times in a row to possibly cause damage to the enemy. If the difference in talismans between the two sides was not enough to deflate their courage, then the enormous difference in tactics caused their hopelessness to spread. The Turtle Island sword shio were like packs of cunning and vicious wolves. They never moved alone, always in groups of 3 to 5. Even if the enemy was one person, they would still surround them in groups of 3 to 5. If they encountered a strong opponent, these fragmented little teams would nimbly gather from all directions and furiously charge. Their charges were furious and inexhaustible, their sword lights sharp and unstoppable. They were cold and merciless, they were regulated and well organized, they were trained tactically. They were like demons that were born from the eerie fires of hell and carried the presence of death. The sky seemed to be dyed red by the sprays of blood that erupted. The crisscrossing cold sword lights were the magnificent flowers when death captured life. The weak defense of the Tian family disciples were drowned completely in the endless sword lights. Tian Hao's lips were trembling as his body uncontrollably shook. The sky full of sword howling was like countless owls croaking. He felt that he would be torn up in the next instant. He wasn't a novice, and was the elite of the battalion. He had seen situations of many sizes. But he still uncontrollably shook. He understood that the intimidating howling of the enemy attacks was the result of purposefully loosening their control of Ling power, but he still uncontrollably felt fear. He had never thought there would be a day that he would face such fearsome enemies. The talismans and flying swords that were worthy of envy and jealousy were not enough to defeat a battle-hardened veterans. He had killed many enemies with more powerful talismans than he had. This group of enemies gathered and scattered suddenly and were hard to predict. Each charge would be decisive. No matter how bad the situation was or what advantage the enemy had, they would always maintain their little tactical formations. They were like machines that only knew to slaughter. They did not deviate and did not make one mistake. There was nothing more frightening than this, or could make Tian Hao feel more hopeless. He suddenly felt the Tian family was so stupid. Why had they challenged an enemy that was so much powerful than they were? The sword lights in the sky grew and brushed through the sky like a comb. No matter how the enemies within the sword lights struggled and resisted, they were like fragile bubbles that popped upon contact. As the advantage on one side increased, the rhythm of battle would quickly increase. Another Jindan fell. From beginning to now, the 6 Jindan were important targets that Vermilion Bird Camp focused on. This Jindan had been dragged down by 150 Vermilion Bird Camp sword shio and died due to using up all of his Ling power. Even the 3 remaining Jindan felt their courage flee, much less those Tian family disciples. In this short period of time, 3 Jindan had died. They had never been through such a desperate battle. It was too frightening. They were Jindan and had more experienced eyes than other combat shio. The golden flying swords in the hands of the enemy sword shio was a frightening high degree, and even more powerful than the most outstanding 4th grade flying swords. being even stronger than the most outstanding 4th-grade flying swords. So what grade was it? Looking at the matching golden flying swords, they didn't dare to think. Flee. Losing their courage, the Tian family disciples ran away in a disorganized manner. They just wanted to leave this fearsome place as fast as possible. They did not put up any resistance because any resistance would affect their speed of escape. There was only one thought in their minds: flee. Flee as fast as possible. What family laws, what disciplehood, that was all thrown away at this time. It was unknown who it started with, but at this time, the ranks collapsed like an avalanche. All of the people shouted and then turned and fled for their lives. The fleeing crowd and the Tianyi battalion that had rushed over at full power now collided together. Tianye's face suddenly changed. The combat show at the front of the battalion shifted. Those clansmen that were completely in a frenzy charged into their battalion. In the eyes of these Tian family disciples that had lost their last threads of bravery, if they neared the Tian family battalion, they would be able to survive. The defeated soldiers flooded at Tianyi battalion like a tide. "Do not collide," Tianyi shouted urgently. His pupils suddenly expanded and his voice stopped abruptly. Sword light. All over the horizon. An angry wave composed from numerous sword lights were tightly following behind this group of fleeing soldiers and were aimed at him. Tianyi glared angrily, but his brain was still clear as ever. He knew if he hesitated in this moment, the entire troop would be lost. He shouted furiously, "Kill!" Tianyi battalion had gone to Blood Sky Metropolis. Jie had had more battle experience than normal battalions. These combat show might not bear to do it, but they understood if their battle formation became disorganized, then they would all die. Their eyes were red as they shouted at the top of their lungs, "Kill!" Those Tian family disciples never had expected that Tianyi battalion would move against them. Unguarded, blood sprayed out and 70 or so Tian family disciples died instantly. Tianye's move was cruel, but it was effective and showed his decisiveness as an exceptional silver battle general. But he did not know that underneath their position, there was another troop waiting for them. The bright and beautiful sword lights attracted everyone's gaze. The appearance of Xu Long's group was silent and did not attract any attention. The 300 hardship guards that had just received MO weapons were so silent they were like statues. Xu Long coldly looked at the sky, his handsome face calm. Xu Long could not be said to be a battle general, but he had received Pu Yao's teachings and his eyes were not lacking. Pu Yao had once thought of nurturing Xu Long into a battle general, but the path of Yao battle generals and Mo battle generals were completely different paths. Only a freak like Sua Mo could naturally feel the power of others. However, Xu Long did not lack the knowledge and judgment that a battle general should have. He could see that Ma Fan's group had the advantage. Guard Camp and Vermilion Bird Camp were in a competitive relationship, but that was a deliberate manipulation by Xu Long and Ma Fan. Xu Long had a deep understanding of the combat capabilities of Vermilion Bird Camp. He knew very well when Vermilion Bird Camp held the advantage in battle, then it wasn't far from the end of battle. So he did not move, and stealthily hid, waiting to give those defeated soldiers a fatal blow. But when he saw Tianyi battalion coming to aid, he changed his mind. In boss words, that was a fatter sheep. Born a sword xiu, Xu Long had endurance other people could not rival. He silently waited for a chance. Until this moment. Kill! Xu Long bellowed as the black halberd in his hand stabbed into the sky. The black mist that surrounded the black halberd formed a 3-zhang long halberd shadow that howled into the sky. Kill! 300 hardship guards shouted together and attacked with the MO weapons in their hands. 300 black misty shadows of various shapes were 300 shrieking crows that shot at Tianyi battalion in the sky. The black mist released by the hardship guards merged into one patch that moved relentlessly. It was the Crow Fiend MO kill formation. Xu Long's black halberd shadow was like an enormous nail that pierced into the ranks of Tianyi battalion. Pia, a moderate explosion, the halberd exploded and turned to a thick ball of black mist that covered dozens of combat xiu. The 300 black shadows that came after exploded at the same time and became thick black mist that covered half of the Tianyi battalion combat xiu. Tianyi Battalion was preparing for the incoming sword energy attacks. This sudden change caused confusion to spread through the ranks, resulting in chaos. Tianyi was both shocked and angry. He was shrouded in the black mist and couldn't even see his fingers. So vicious. At this point in battle, to use this kind of spell to obscure their vision, they were really vicious. Shocked and angry, he yelled, "All on defense. Prepare to face sword energies." Just at this time, the black mist that seemed harmless and only served obscured people's visions suddenly bared its fangs. Chapter 473, Fatal Blow. Tianyi felt the situation was terrible. He didn't know what talisman the black mist had been forged from, but it was extremely thick, obscuring their vision. In front of him was a black expanse so thick he could not even see his fingers, but he could clearly sense the nervousness of the guards that were next to him. The attack that followed definitely would be ferocious. The attack wave constructed from countless sword energies caused him to feel deep worry, even though he had only managed to take a glance. His battalion was strong offensively and weak defensively. The defensive formation they usually practiced, the Sky Sunflower Guard formation, was not an outstanding defense formation. He was doubtful about how long this Sky Sunflower Guard formation could hold up under such a strong charge. He already prepared himself for losing his soldiers, if it wasn't for this black mist. Even though there would still be losses, this situation would lead to many more than he previously expected. He had absolute confidence in his command, yet what shocked him and surprised him was that the Sky Ray Treasure Lens was completely ineffective against this black mist. The Sky Ray Treasure Lens was the most important talisman on his body and was his only 6th grade talisman. It could see through illusory spells and techniques, could view things outside 1,000 li, and could be called a wondrous treasure. The Sky Ray Treasure Lens was the top reason that they had managed to survive in Blood Sky Metropolis Jia. Yet this talisman that never failed him before was ineffective today. Because of the island formation, he had been unable to view the island from the outside. The Sky Ray Treasure Lens was also non-responsive against this black mist, and had made Tianyi suspect that it was broken. This black mist was probably a special talisman. Tianyi thought about this, but more of his attention was placed on the sword energy wave that was soon to arrive. After roaming in Blood Sky Metropolis Jia for a long time, he had seen many strange talismans, one stranger than even this, and naturally did not feel great wonder. Suddenly, a light grunt came from beside him. However, this did not attract Tianyi's attention. The howling of the sword energy wave was like thunder in comparison, and the entire sky seemed to be trembling from its approach. Under this terrifying wave of sound, no one paid attention to the occasional grunts that sounded from inside the black mist. Everyone's nerves were stretched tight, and Sky Sunflower Guard formation was channeled to its maximum. The first to detect something was not right was Tianyi. His face suddenly changed. Not good. There was a plot. The tang of blood was faintly discernible in the black mist, seemed to prove his speculation. Unafraid of anything, Tianyi's face was ashen. His expanded pupils were full of disbelief and also had deep terror. Sky Sunflower Guard formation. It was Sky Sunflower Guard formation that was telling him. As the main commander of the battalion, every change in the battle formation would be reported to him. He has just noticed that the power of the Sky Sunflower Guard formation was slightly less than half its usual strength. This discovery almost stopped his breathing. This wasn't possible. He was not an useless person, and he had relied on his actual skills to obtain this position. In just an instant, he understood everything and was dumbstruck. In this short period, only 2/3 of the combat shio were left in the Sky Sunflower Guard formation. How was this possible? He almost didn't dare to believe this result. This battalion's members had been handpicked by him. He had taken them to Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia and gone through many hardships to bring them back to Cloud Sea Jia. These subordinates that were unwaveringly loyal to him, he understood them better than anyone. They definitely would not make such a fatal mistake at such a crucial time. The only possibility was that 1/3 of the combat shio had been assassinated unknowingly. He suddenly realized that the black mist wasn't used to just obscure their vision. It hid a murderousness plot. At this time, one of his personal guards slumped over without any strength. "A Yong!" Tianyi shouted in shock. For the first time, he felt terror. The black mist that was almost tangible in front of his eyes seemed to hid a vicious beast that could not be seen and would consume lives at any moment. Tianyi's shout did not attract the attention of other combat Xiu because of the sword energies. The howling of the sword energy great wave drowned out everything, like the howling and barks of countless Yao beasts. They charged like a tide, furious and bloodthirsty. Bam bam bam. Facing this terrifying wave of sword energy, the light of the defensive formation was as fragile as glass, and upon contact, it turned to powder in the black mist. The collapse of the battle formation undoubtedly signaled the fate of this group of combat Xiu. In battles between battalions, when their formation was shattered, especially their defense formation, that meant failure. The talismans on the soldiers' bodies were not any different than papier-mâché in front of the vast expanse of sword energies. The combat Xiu that lost the protection of the battle formation didn't even have time to wail before they were torn to pieces by the flood of sword energies. The moment the battle formation shattered, Tianyi knew that they had lost this battle. Lost completely. His terror disappeared, and he showed the rebellious smile he usually had. Dying under the sword of such an opponent, it was a worthy death. Flee! 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 The three Jindan were like homeless dogs, hating that their parents hadn't given birth to them with a pair of wings. In their frantic retreat, none of them displayed the usual composure of a Jindan. They had originally prepared to flee towards the Tianyi battalion, as it was the top battalion of the Tian family and was very strong. If they could run there, they should be safe. The three of them were Jindan cultivation, and Tianyi would definitely recruit them. If they could help Tianyi get some combat service, then they would find it easy to return home. They were different than those others that were recruited from the outside. They were born Tian family members, and their own family members were in the clan. If they were not forced to, then they would not leave the Tian family. Who knew the Tianyi battalion that they put their high hopes on couldn't even stand up under one encounter and had turned to ash. The three completely lost of their courage. That was Tianyi battalion. The true top battalion of the Tian family. A battalion that could rank in all of Cloud Sijie. Oh. How could it be destroyed just like that? Terror was like a powerful poison that spread to every corner of their body and ate at every one of their nerves. There was only one thought in their minds: stay far from this ghastly place. Farther. They flew furiously. Yet what they had not expected was that because their speed was much faster than other combat Xiu, they were extremely eye-catching and had attracted Lil Pagoda's attention. Before, Ma Fan's plan had been to bolt the door and beat the dog. They were to lure the Tian family into the island, and then close the large formation to destroy all of them on the island. Yet no one had expected Tianyi battalion to not advance with the others, and not enter Turtle Island as they had expected. Due to this, Lil Pagoda still had not received the order to close the island formation. But when Lil Pagoda saw the three Jindan about the escape from the island formation, it became panicked and instantly closed the formation without a word. In a blink, black clouds appeared in the sky. Thunder roared in the cloud layers, and silver snakes arced. The black clouds came extremely quickly, as though it appeared out of everywhere. The expressions of the three Jindan changed dramatically. They were not dumb and understood what the other intended: to kill them all. Among the thick black clouds, the curving electric snakes caused their hearts to tremble. The terrifying power was like a storm that blew against the weak mental barriers of the three. Yet the last straw that broke the camel's back was the azure light that was faintly discernible. The three felt themselves frozen, and all of them had hopeless expressions. When had they ever been pushed to such a hopeless state? After becoming Jindan, failure and setbacks seemed to distance themselves, and they were forever the objects of admiration. But right now, the hopelessness on the person leading gradually turned to viciousness. His face was twisted, his eyes full of uncaring frenzy as he shouted, "Brothers! Kill one to break even." His harsh and hopeless voice suddenly stopped, his expression freezing on his face as though he became statue in a flash. He dropped down from the sky, bam, and hit the ground heavily. There wasn't a thread of life on his body. Following the fall of their fellow, the Jindan seemed to see a ghost. There was a wooden-faced young female and a large bird silently standing near his body. The young female did not have any expression on her face, her eyes empty and without emotion. The large bird beside her was staring with a vicious expression at them. Was it this seemingly lifeless young female that had just attacked? They found it hard to believe. This young female did not seem to be exceptional in any regard, and they were even unable to feel any Ling power vibration from her body. No one told them the answer. Endless terror consumed their minds. Other than terror, their eyes could not hold anything else. The bravery to drag others into death with them was erased by this eerie attack. This was an eerie place. Everything was so eerie. Otherwise, why would they have been defeated? Why did Tianyi Battalion get defeated so quickly? Why did they have to die here? Why was not one person able to escape? Everything was like a nightmare in front of them. Their gazes were scattered and their presences became chaotic. They heard a clear chirp among their blurriness, and it seemed to have a thread of disdain. What followed was a pain in their chest, and then they did not know anything. Looking at the black clouds that shrouded the entire Turtle Island, Li Shu showed a serious expression. At his side, Feng Bai's expression was shocked. Is all of Tian family going to die here? I hadn't expected that this Turtle Island's strength was so. It isn't bad. Li Shu did not speak. Feng Shixiang said that Turtle Island wasn't bad, but it could be heard from his tone that he was indifferent. This was very normal. Feng Shixiang was just passing through Cloud Sijie and did not understand the Tian family's strength, so he would be like this. But Li Shu understood the Tian family's strength, and deep worry entered his eyes. Chapter 474, A Visit from Liao Qichang. After victory of the battle at Turtle Island, Lil Miss did not hesitate and instantly retaliated against the Tian family. Their battalions killed. The remaining Tian family forces were not a match for Vermilion Bird Camp and quickly collapsed. Even the old Master Tian that was in seclusion in hopes of breaking through to Yuanying had to come out to save them. Yet Zue Mo and the others had returned by this time. With all of the experts in attendance, even though old Master Tian had Jindan third stratum cultivation, he could not stop Zue Mo and the others from ganging up on him and was killed. The battle that occurred between Turtle Island and the Tian family astounded all of Su Ling City. The Tian family's instantaneous destruction was a great blow to many people, especially those businesses that had allied with the Tian family to work against Turtle Island. They were terrified, and many of them even fled Su Ling City during the night. What was worthy of speculation was Su Ling sect's attitude. Su Ling sect had not reacted to such a significant event, as though they did not notice it had occurred. Having taken over the Tian family's territory and Ling fields, Turtle Island jumped to become the second power of Su Ling City, and its reputation shot up. The news that followed after pushed Turtle Island's reputation to even greater heights. Someone found had Yuan Xian's bones. Yuan Xian was found on a desolate island. His fleshly body had been destroyed, only leaving behind pale white bones. If it was not his personal effects and artifacts that proved he was Yuan Xian, no one would connect this pile of white bones to the top-ranked expert of Cloud Sijie. Yuan Xian was dead, Ning Yi and Gu Ming Gong had disappeared. The business people of Su Ling City entered a period of unprecedented terror. The businesses that could escape Su Ling City all ran, while many of the remaining businesses could not leave Su Ling City, due to various reasons, could only await their fates. The news of the Tian family were nightmares that did not allow them to rest at night. Su Ling City was full of terror. At this time, Turtle Island was full of joy and cheer. This battle had been a dangerous one, but they had achieved victory in the end. Starting from yesterday, everyone was inventorying the spoils, and all of them couldn't help but smile. The richness of the harvest this time surpassed everyone's predictions. The Tian family was very rich, as would be expected of a family with a long history. It dazzled Zhuomo's eyes and caused him to drool. He finally knew that he had underestimated these local families. In just Jingshi, there were 36 sixth-grade Jingshi, and the talismans of various types were innumerable. There were 2 sixth-grade talismans. Other than the Sky Ray treasure lens, the other was a rare 6th grade Ling plant talisman, Earth Spirit Matter conveying stone. He had taken the Earth Spirit Matter conveying stone from the body of the old Master Tian. He didn't know what the stone was forged from. It could continuously release Ling power and nurture all substances. It was a wondrous treasure. Even Zuemo had never seen such a wondrous talisman before. There were also many 4th and 5th grade talismans, but they no longer interested Zuemo. He gave them as rewards to the members with outstanding accomplishments in battle. What were the most numerous was the Tian family's Ling fields and Ling mines. The Tian family had started out as Ling plant farmers, and even Su Ling sect could not compare to them in terms of Ling fields. The Tian family also had the largest number of Ling plant farmers. Under the soft and hard tactics from the Tian family, these Ling plant farmers had signed death contracts. Now that the Tian family was defeated, they also became Zuemo's spoils of battle. However, Zuemo had decided not to reveal the formations on the Ling fields of Turtle Island to these Ling plant farmers. He wasn't ignorant and understood this method that completely upended the traditional Ling farming methods and would create endless trouble for him if it was revealed. Before he was strong enough, there could only be one outcome. With so many Ling plant farmers, he didn't need to worry at all and only needed to send a few people to supervise the production. This was a hen that would continuously lay golden eggs. Island Master really is powerful. Outside the island, Liao Qichang's voice passed over the distance. Zuemo leapt into the air and welcomed him. He saw Liao Qichang and Su Zhengwei come together and raised his folded hands in a greeting. Mr. Liao, Elder Su, long time no see. Su Zhengwei hurriedly returned the greeting and his tone held a thread of awe. Island Master, long time no see. If it was said he had just been shocked at the power of Zuemo and the others, now he really felt awe. The enormous Tian family had been turned to dust in the blink of an eye. The power of this Turtle Island wasn't just awe-inspiring, it was terrifying. Liao Qichang laughed brightly. Island Master's fight tactics are uncanny and will be a classic. This is just good luck. Zuemo pretended to be humble as he spoke, but he still felt proud inside. Liao Qichang shook his head and said, "Luck? Island Master is incorrect. Who can destroy the Tian family based on luck? Only people with great charisma and skill can do it. Even that battalion ranking can't stay still. 32, a rank that even the Su Ling battalion has never held. It seems the name of Turtle Island is going to spread through the entire Cloud Sea Jie." Zuemo tried to act humble, but he still couldn't help but smile. These were clearly the mannerisms of a lowly person that had accomplished their dream. However, it had not gone to his head. He hurriedly said, "That doesn't count, doesn't count. What have you come for this time?" he saw Liao Qichang say with a smile. "This one has come this time for 3 matters. Zuemo replied, "What 3 matters?" "The first matter is to congratulate Island Master for your great victory." Zuemo's expression did not change. He asked, "Many thanks, Mr. Liao. Then the second matter?" "The second is about the Azure Ether. This one has remembered the Azure Ether matter that Island Master mentioned and has searched around. This one finally found it recently and is delivering it personally, as to not distract Island Master from your affairs." When Liao Qichang finished speaking, he took out a transparent glass bottle. Inside the bottle was a ball of azure substance that was like cloud or mist, but not that slowly flowed. As expected, this was Azure Ether. Zuemo couldn't help but show joy. The meridional Azure Ether formation on the island only lacked the Azure Ether, and it would then be perfect. In the battle this time, the power of the meridional Azure Ether formation had showed itself. If it wasn't for the meridional Azure Ether formation, and there was only the Yin-Yang Thundercloud formation, the enemy would have managed to break through long before Vermilion Bird Camp had fully prepared. What is the selling price of this Azure Ether? Zuemo's eyes were burning. Liao Qichang smiled slightly and said, "This is hard to find, but its price is not high. This bottle of Azure Ether is a present for Island Master. It is this one's gift of congratulations for Island Master's victory." Finishing, he gently handed the glass bottle to Zuemo. Zuemo received it and it disappeared in a flash. There was no shame on his face. "Then many thanks, Brother Liao." Liao Chi-chong smiled slightly. The bottle is crystal clean light bottle. It is a bottle that is good for capturing substances such as clouds, mist, and flowing it. So this is for Island Master as well. Many thanks, Brother Liao. Mo was slightly moved this time. To say of nothing else, just this mannerism of gifting was not something normal people could afford to do. Then the third matter? Mo asked proactively. He also knew the other wouldn't give him talismans for no reason. He must have a request for the third matter. As long it was not a difficult matter, he would consent. This third matter is this one wants to ask Island Master for mercy, Liao Chi-chong said slowly. Mercy? Mercy for what? Mo did not understand. Liao Chi-chong sighed lightly. When this one heard that some businesses had allied with the Tian family to scheme against your island, this one knew it was not good. Yet my warnings did not carry weight, and they did not listen to this one's urgings. With Island Master's great victory, they are fearful and cannot rest at night. Originally, this one did not plan on interfering in this matter. One needs to pay their debts, but they have some connections to this one, and have pleaded to me for days. This one really cannot bear it, and has come with a thick face to ask for a favor from Island Master. Please, spare them. Mo's face turned dark. He hadn't expected Liao Chi-chong to ask for mercy on behalf of those people. Those businesses had allied with the Tian family to suppress him from the beginning. He opened cultivation classes. They tried to stop it by using their power. Then they had a share in hiring Ning Yi, Yuan Xian, and Gu Minggong. Mo was never a generous person. It was the opposite. He was vengeful and would settle his debts. He would repay favors and take revenge. From the beginning, he had noted it down and waited to settle the debts later. Liao Chi-chong actually was asking for mercy for these people. Liao Chi-chong knew that this request was one that difficult. Even though the battle between Ning Yi's group and Turtle Island was a mystery, but it was possible to see the life-threatening danger involved from the death of Yuan Xian. No one would easily spare those that had almost killed them. They are extremely regretful and know it is not possible to escape their crime. Every family is willing to give their leader to Island Master to determine their fate. Also, Island Master, please accept these 10 pieces of 6th grade jingsher. They only hope to preserve some part of their family. Island Master, please spare them. Liao Chi-chong took out a yellow little bag and handed it to Mo's expression eased slightly, but he did not immediately take the jingsher. He looked at Liao Chi-chong and said, those that were responsible for starting this matter need to take responsibility. Liao Chi-chong understood that Mo's words were a death sentence for these people. Those clans would definitely deliver the heads of these people for the sake of their families and to calm Turtle Island's anger. He nodded crisply and said, all right. Mo now took the jingsher and said, this time, I will spare them because of Brother Liao. If they have other thoughts in the future, then do not blame this one for being impolite. That is natural. Liao Chi-chong smiled as he was relieved of a great burden. He hadn't wanted to take this hot potato, but they had slowly ground down his resolve, so he had forced himself to come. However, the success of this negotiation was also beneficial for him. His reputation among the businesses would grow and no one would openly contend with this businesses. Mo was also very content. The 10 pieces of 6th grade jingsher was a great surprise, and by executing those responsible, it would intimated the businesses of Su Ling City. This was the best result. Turtle Island had just swallowed the Tian family and did not have a stable foundation. Even though he did not know why Su Ling's sect had not made a sound this time, the other definitely was paying attention in secret. It was not hard to make trouble for those little businesses. But for Mo and the others that had recently come to Su Ling City, it was not a wise decision to make enemies everywhere. Rampaging and charging everywhere was something only a rash person would do. How could the cunning Mo do such an profitable business? Since the other side had given Mo enough to show their respect, Mo was naturally willing to take a steps off the stage. Getting rich without lifting a finger was the best plan. After all, the fat piece of meat, the Tian family, could not be digested in a short period of time. Chapter 475, Meridional Azure Ether Formations. Emo stopped in the air above Turtle Island. Looking down at the enormous island, he couldn't help but feel emotional. Suddenly, he spread his arms and gathered all the Ling power in his body. Pia pia pia. 108 meridional azure ether spikes shot out of the earth and silently floated around him. Zhuomo's expression became serious. He took out the crystal-clear light bottle from his ring and lightly plucked out the stopper. A ball of azure ether continuously flooded out of the mouth. This azure ether was extraordinarily beautiful. It was cloud-like and mist-like, but not either of them with an indigo azure color. When it wafted out, it did not dissipate but floated in the sky and slowly swirled. Zhuomo's 10 figures flew furiously. Streaks of Ling power lights rose and extinguished on his fingertips, the light blooming and profound. Zhuomo's eyes suddenly became bright as he shouted, "Ha!" A streak of light left his hand and entered the azure ether. The azure ether suddenly froze and then exploded. It turned to 108 threads of azure smoke and shot into the meridional azure ether spikes. Zhuomo's expression became even more stern. His right hand moved and a meridional azure ether spike flew in front of him. Zhuomo didn't seem to make a move, but a thread of great day-banded flame appeared soundlessly in front of him that swallowed that meridional azure ether spike. The azure ether within the spike was stimulated and shifted restlessly, causing even the great day-banded flame to be tinged with azure. About an hour later, the azure tinge in the great day-banded flame retreated and it became a golden flame once more with differently colored bands. The meridional azure ether spike once again returned to Zhuomo's hand. There was a long and narrow azure ether seal was on the body of the spike, which now glowed and exuded a faint power. Zhuomo showed a satisfied expression on his face. His right hand moved and another spike flew. The refinement process started again. He forged the spikes one after the other. He would rest when he was tired, and then continue when his Ling power was replenished. As he continuously forged, his skill became more practiced and he had a deeper understanding of the azure ether seal that caused his speed to increase. After 3 days, the reforging of the 108 meridional azure ether spikes was completed. The reforged meridional azure ether spikes floated around him like stars circling the moon. Zhuomo could faintly feel the unique communication between them. There were 6 different azure ether seals, each of them with their own power and abilities that floated through Zhuomo's mind. He seemed to understand something. Almost unconsciously, he raised both of his hands. There seemed to be an invisible string that caused 108 meridional azure ether spikes to float upward as though they were being pulled. The azure ether seals on the spokes lit up one by one. When the azure ether seal on the last meridional azure ether spike lit up, an invisible force suddenly surrounded Zhuomo's body shook slightly, like the water in the pond was full and about to overflow. Zhuomo did not even think as his hands suddenly pressed down on the empty air and shouted, "In!" Like arrows leaving the bowstring, the 108 meridional azure ether spikes turned to 108 dashes of azure light that entered all corners of Turtle Island. An enormous azure light shell then covered the island like a bowl being placed upside down. Many Xiuzhou were disturbed by the change and flew into the sky. Their attention were all attracted to this thin light shell. Zhuomo released a breath as though he was relieved of a great burden. He raised his head to look at the azure light shield above his head. This layer of light was extremely thin and seemed as though it would shatter upon contact like eggshell. Zhuomo knew that Jindan Xiuzhou definitely could not break through it, and it would hold unless a Yuanying Xiuzhou attacked. Even then, a Yuanying Xiuzhou would not have an easy time breaking through this thin shell of light. The defensive power of the meridional azure ether formation was extremely strong. If he could find better materials, better azure ether, the power of the formation would grow to the point that even Yuanying could not break it. Zhuomo quickly threw this unrealistic notion to the back of his mind. All the wealth he had, even added together, wouldn't be enough to forge such a set of meridional azure ether spikes. The shield of light gradually dimmed until it could not be seen. The sky seemed to return to what it was before, but Zhuomo knew that the defensive power of the formation had more than doubled. Zhou Mo wanted to make his own nest fort. Zhou Mo considered whether he should construct a few formation battle watchtowers, but then he ended the thought. The power of the formation battle watchtowers were slightly useless to the present Turtle Island. In the past, everyone's skill was not very high, and their enemies were not strong. But Zhou Mo didn't even remember how many Jindan they had encountered. If conflict occurred, the power of the formation battle watchtower would not be sufficient. Also, their present power was not something that their past could compare to. After experiencing the sealed extinction battlefield, with the help of the black processing meditation mat, the formations that originated in Mo matrices, the Ling Dan and Ling foods, as long as Zhou Mo had it, he would not be miserly. Many of the Xiozha of Vermilion Bird Camp had reached the third stratum of Ningmai. Even Golden Crow Camp had many that reached the third stratum. Becoming Jindan was the right path. One normal Jindan Xiozha was equivalent to hundreds of Ningmai Xiozha. But Zhou Mo didn't have good solutions to aid core formation. Right now, with his 3 powers as one, his Ling power's strange stagnant period of no growth had finally been broken. Of course, with benefit there came loss. Now the strange cycle of his Ling power growth was broken. His Mo physique had instead stopped growing. Even if Zhou Mo cultivated his Mo physique, what grew was his Ling and spiritual power. Zhou Mo suspected that the growth of the Mo physique was being limited by his Ling and spiritual power, and would only grow once all 3 had reached the same level. Due to the pause in his Ling power growth in the past, Zhou Mo's present Ling power was the lowest in the entire camp, other than when compared to the Flower Yao. This was a great source of dejection for him. Zhou Mo had asked Pu Yao and Wei Xing if there was any ideas about core formation. However, the two did not know, they were not Xiozha in the end. Zhou Mo planned on asking Su Zhengwei or Liao Qichang in the future. If he could hire a few Jindan, the power of the camp would go up another level. Right now, Zhou Mo had other affairs to attend to. The Earth Spirit Matter conveying stone was put at the center of the entire island. This treasure was really wondrous, causing the Ling energy of the entire island to increase instantly. The Ling fields were affected the most, and the grades of all the Ling fields were increased by a fraction. Ling fields of higher grades could raise Ling plants of higher grades, and could produce Ling plants of better quality. Zhou Mo also moved the high-grade Ling plants he had found from the Tian family estate, planted near the Earth Spirit Matter conveying stone. One of them was a 5th-grade Fury Maple. Its leaves were as red as fire and the trunk was a dark red. When one walked near, they could clearly feel a wave of heat being exuded from the plant. It was a rare fire Ling plant and each leaf it produced was worth 1,000 jingshu. The fruit it produced was called Fire Eye Fruit and was used to forge fire element talismans. The other plant was 1,000-finger guanine orchid. This flower was 5th grade and shaped like the fingers of the guanine. If it bloomed, it would have thousands of flowers and was named so. This flower was deeply coveted by Diana Xiao and was greatly beneficial for their samadhi. It was also the raw material for many Ling medicines. The 1,000-flinger guanine orchid would bloom every decade and was extremely rare due to this. Zhou Mo had been shocked and joyous that the Tian family had 2 such rare Ling plants. Compared to these 2 Ling plants, the sonic lightning walnut wasn't much. Old Master Tian had started off dealing in Ling pants, and naturally had collected more than these 2 plants in his collection. There were also many rare 4th-grade plants, but they were now all in Zhou Mo's purse now. He had moved the entire Ling plant garden to Turtle Island. He dug up all of the Tian family treasures. Even the treasure safes that were hidden deep in the ground had been dug out under the guidance of Lil Black. As for the Sky Ray treasure lens, Zhou Mo gifted it to Gong Sun Shidi. This talisman was suited for battle generals and was akin to giving wings to Lil Mississippi. The richness of the gains this time surpassed his predictions, but there were also losses. Wei Xing Xixiang and Zhong Ru were recuperating from their wounds. Zhong Ru's wounds were not too serious, but eldest Xixiang was still unconscious. Zhou Mo was very worried. Thinking about it now, Ning Yi's power still shook his mind. Compared to Ning Yi, old Master Tian wasn't on the same level. Zhou Mo hadn't put great value on talismans in the past, but this battle really called his attention to them. If it wasn't for the surprise performance of the black gold seal soldier and the black sword in eldest Shixiang's hands, they would have died back then. The power that could be expressed by powerful talismans were terrifying. He finally understood now why so many Xiuzhe would furiously pursue talismans. One didn't feel it in daily life, but when one encountered a true expert, they finally knew what it was to struggle with each step and not have a solution. What caused all this, other than the other's high cultivation, was the talisman on their hands. One talisman could decide life and death. They had forged many talismans, but there was never a talisman that possessed the terrifying power of the blood fiend Ashur umbrella. Zuo felt that they had not invested enough energy in this area. Truly top talismans were almost always forged by the Xiuzhe who used it. People wouldn't sell these kind of talismans, and what could be bought on the market were outstanding, like the Blue Soul Cold Light Armor, but these were not considered top-tier talismans. Zuo decided to forge a powerful talisman. Otherwise, the dangers of the last incident would occur again. He thought of a person. Tied up with the immortal tying chains, Gu Minggong's spirits were low. Not eating or drinking for a few days wasn't a big problem for him, but how long was it since he has had to endure such a thing? His mind was blank. Ever since 30 years ago, when his forging and seal-making skills had matured, he had lived a luxurious life. No matter where he went, which person did not greet him with a smiling face. But right now, he was a prisoner. He was very clear that the other had not killed him because he probably had an interest in his forging and seal creation skills. If he was of no use, there would only be one outcome for him. He felt unparalleled terror. At this moment, with a creak, the door was pushed open. A young entered his vision, the one that had captured him. He knew the time to decide his fate had arrived. Chapter 476, Soul-Setting Divine Lights. Mo stared at Gu Minggong silently. The pressure brought by the silence almost caused Gu Minggong to suffocate. Endless terror spread through his heart. He felt the other's gaze seemed to be looking at something dead, or a lamb waiting for slaughter. I don't want to die. What he did not know was that Zuomo's silence was not on purpose to pressure him but because he was in heated discussion with Pu Yao and Wei. I want him to work for me. In the sea of consciousness, Zuo shrugged with a matter-of-fact expression. But he is a Jindan and has a higher cultivation than I do. He's also skilled in formations, so it is very dangerous. What suggestions do you have? Pu Yao said unconcernedly, if you only want the forging knowledge in his mind, you can just draw out his soul. Draw his soul? This phrase caused Zuo to shudder uncontrollably. Even though it is slightly cruel, it is very effective. If you can draw out his soul, you can quickly possess the knowledge that belongs to him. How about it? Are you moved? Pu Yao's eerie red pupil narrowed and the slight smile on the corner of his mouth carried a coldness that was unique to him. He continued, of course, there is nothing that is perfect in the world. You will receive his memories and comprehensions, but it will also affect your mind. Zuomo's hairs rose up when hearing this, but he couldn't stop himself from asking, what are the effects? Usually a personality split, a change in personality, etc. Who knows? Everyone's played about with the soul for so many years, but no one truly understands, Pu Yao said irresponsibly. Zuo almost immediately blocked Pu Yao's method. He turned his face. Wei, do you have any methods? Wei thought for a moment and slowly opened, we can only look in the direction of Jinji. Jinji? Zuomo's eyes lit up but then his brow creased. His cultivation is higher than mine, so I cannot put Jinji in him. He's also skilled in formations, so it might not be able to restrain him. I know a type of ancient Jinji that might work. Wei was very conservative in his words. Zuomo's eyes lit up. What Jinji? Tell me. Pu Yao also had curiosity on his face. Wei's existence was more ancient than his, and he was also curious what kind of strange and wondrous Jinji Wei could produce. I feel we must first discuss payment, Wei said smilingly. In this moment, Zuo felt Wei's expression was almost the exact same as Pu Yao. His expression instantly crumbled. Pu Yao was a calamity. Whomever stayed with him would be affected. Even this guy's heart was black. Seriously? Zuo wailed. Wei was not affected and smiled at Zuemo's what Mo quickly surrendered. Alright, what payment do you want? Guard camp cultivates Mo skills. It is not suited for Pu, give it to me, Wei said with the same smile. Pu Yao's eyes instantly narrowed and became as long and cold as a blade, his entire body exuding an extremely dangerous presence. Wei was not affected by this as though he did not detect the change. My previous master was Mo, and I understand more about how to cultivate Mo's skills than Pu. I can get them to grow more quickly. Also, to date Guard Camp hasn't produced even one battle general. This is enough to show that Pu Yao is not suited to teaching Guard Camp. Pu Yao's expression was unfriendly. His entire person was like a cold blade that was unsheathed, the black robes he was wearing flapping despite the lack of wind as though he would leap and consume his enemy. For Pu Yao, Guard Camp was something he was used to while away his time. He didn't find it so important, but that did not mean he would allow someone to take it away from him. How could the proud Pu Yao tolerate such a matter happening to him? The black fire in the sea of consciousness seemed to solidify. Zuemo felt his scalp turn numb. Both of these were people he could not afford to offend. How had he been pulled into the battle between them? This was dangerous. Too dangerous for his life. He didn't dare to make a sound. He suspected that if he showed even the slightest bit of agreement, Pu Yao would tear him to pieces on the spot. Pu Yao's voice was bone-chillingly cold. Jinji? Who doesn't know Jinji? Just one type of Jinji and you want Guard Camp? You are delusional. A certain fake gentleman won't teach, I'll teach you. This Jinji is called Purple Netherworld Curse. Wei's faint voice interrupted. Purple Netherworld Curse can only be cast by Rahula Yao. If there isn't not enough spiritual power, it would backlash on the user. Pu Yao stilled and his expression became uglier. Other than Purple Netherworld Curse, there is the Needle Ghost Curse. The Needle Ghost Curse needs 13 bone needles. Those aren't easy to find. Pu Yao's face became increasingly dark. He suddenly smiled coldly. Oh, then I want to see what your Jinji is. So you have agreed? Wei looked fearlessly at Pu Yao. Pu Yao said proudly, with this guy's power, a skill that can be realized at the spot, without any side effect. If you can do it, so what if I give you Guard Camp? Zuemo wanted to say weakly, Big brothers, Guard Camp is actually mine. But intelligence caused him to keep his mouth closed. He couldn't offend any of these two big bosses. Suddenly, his mind became alert. Fight. Keep fighting. The more you fight, the more benefits he gets. How did the phrase go? The crane and the clam fights, while the fisherman gets the rice. He closed his mouth tightly and didn't say a word. If that's the case, then I will be disrespectful. Wei smiled warmly, but his words hid needles among the cotton that caused Pu Yao's face to become a fraction uglier. There is nothing in verbal battle. I'm still waiting for you wondrous Jinji to broaden my visions, Pu Yao said ambiguously. Wei finally said lightly, this Jinji is called Soul-Setting Divine Light. Hearing this name, Pu Yao's expression suddenly changed. His abruptly opening pupil was full of disbelief. Soul-Setting Divine Light. You actually comprehend Soul-Setting Divine Light. It was the first time Zuemo had seen such an expression on Pu Yao's face. There was a shock of terror within the amazement and deep disbelief. Soul-Setting Divine Light? What was that? Zuemo's mind was full of puzzlement. If it could cause Pu Yao to lose his composure, then it must be very powerful. Wei still had that same gentle smile, but at the time, it was full of immeasurability. I tried to learn it incidentally, but I didn't learn it. Who are you really? Pu Yao looked hard at Wei. If it wasn't that they would live and die together and coexist together, he would have not been able to stop himself from attacking. He suddenly found that he knew pitifully little about Wei's origins. Other than knowing Wei was once the gravestone armor of the former corps commander, he knew nothing else. I am Wei. 2. Wei smiled as usual, the smile warm as the sunlight of the dawn. Zuemo saw the two's tense face-off and instantly became nervous. Big brothers, this is An's sea of consciousness. He instantly threw the idea of the fisherman getting the rice to the back of his head and tried to make peace. Let's talk peacefully, let's talk peacefully. What is this soul-setting divine light? Is it very powerful? Wei smiled at him. Pu Yao said coldly, if even you didn't learn it, how can you teach him? Wei smiled. My talent is not good. It is normal that I could not learn it. Pu Yao seemed to hear a joke. You feel this boy is talented? Even though he is my student, but his talents, very normal. Zuoremo didn't accept that, and his face suddenly became black. What? Ji's talents were not good? Ji's talents are not good? Zuoremo shot back. How was it that was crying and shouting to take Ji as a student? TSK's burning the bridge after crossing it, eating and wiping clean, then saying Ji's talent isn't good? Pu Yao's old face turned red as he coughed violently. Wei had a wry smile on his face. Yes, you can't be that kind of Yao. How about you give this student to me? Don't push it. Pu Yao recovered his cold smirk. I'm not a little child who doesn't know anything. Soul-setting divine light is one of the ancient great 9 divine lights. Is it easy to cultivate? If he really can learn it, you also have the qualifications to be his teacher. Otherwise, go find a cold place and stay there. All right. Wei nodded without hesitation. He then reached out with his right hand after speaking. Black mist came out of his right hand and quickly gathered into a black ball. It was possible to see dots of light within the black ball that made it even more mysterious. Wei smiled at Zuoremo and the black ball flew towards Zuoremo and entered his body. Zuomo's mind blank as he froze where he stood. In this instant, he felt an enormous and heterogeneous flood of mental thoughts swallowing him like an avalanche. Zuoremo seemed to be situated in a world of strange light. Everywhere was color. Zuoremo had never seen such a variety and richness of color before. He thought that the colors in the entire world must be in here. But these rich colors were all kinds of light. Some were dim, some were bright, some were vivid in color, others as black as ink. They twisted, changed, were destroyed and created again. They lived and died in a cycle, changed constantly and were so vast that Zuoremo could not see the borders. This was an ocean of light. There seemed to be a voice above Zuomo's head, but no matter how hard he tried to hear, he could not hear it clearly. But if he decided to ignore it, the voice would burrow into his ears again. There was only him alone in this rainbow world. In Zuomo's sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's face showed shock again. Imprint. The imprint of the soul-setting divine light. Wei smiled slightly. It is fortunate it has not dissipated. Otherwise it would be a pity. Pu Yao remained silent. He was thinking hard in his mind. If it was said that he had been very shocked that Wei understood how to cultivate the soul-setting divine light, then Wei possessing the imprint of the soul-setting divine light made him even more confident of the guess he had. The soul-setting divine light was one of the ancient great 9 divine lights. The number of people who had ever succeeded in cultivating it could be counted on the fingers. In the present day, most cultivators wouldn't have even heard of it. This great skill was famous in the ancient era and definitely had its outstanding aspects. Since Wei possessed the imprint of the soul-setting divine light, then he should have a direct connection to the great ones that had created this great skill. Soul-setting divine light. Soul-setting divine light. A bolt of lightning flashed in Pu Yao's mind, and his pupils suddenly widened. Chapter 477, Danger Soul-Setting Divine Light. The name would occasionally be referenced in some ancient records. It was said that it was made by the heroes of the Sky Pool tribe, fantastical in its effects, enormously famed, and was ranked as one of the 9 great divine lights. Pu Yao had never seen the soul-setting divine light and did not know what it looked like or what abilities it had. It wasn't just the soul-setting divine light. He had never seen any of the other divine lights before. The divine lights mostly appeared in the early stages of the ancient era, and then later disappeared from the records. No one knew why the divine lights had gradually disappeared, but this was not a strange occurrence. Throughout history, it was the 9 divine lights the only thing to be lost to time? Many secret methods and wondrous techniques had disappeared over the millennia. Each were forever lost in the vast rivers of history. Sky Pool Tribe? What are you to Sky Pool Tribe? Pu Yao stared at Wei. For the first time today, Wei had a shocked expression. As expected from the Encyclopedia of Yao Arts, you even know of my Sky Pool tribe. He then nodded. You are right, I am from the Sky Pool tribe. The amount of information Pu Yao had about the Sky Pool tribe was pitifully little, but within that pitiful amount, it was clear that Sky Pool tribe had been a tribe with powerful people and had dominated for a time. The two sank into silence. Pu Yao did not know what to say. His understanding of the Sky Pool tribe was limited to this, and there was no meaning to knowing that Wei came from the Sky Pool tribe. Wei seemed to be thinking of something and had a reminiscent expression on his face. No matter how famed or powerful the tribe was, it could not stand against the ruthless advance of time. Just like those secret methods and techniques, it also had disappeared in the long river of history. All kinds of colored dazzling light continuously changed and shifted in front of Zuemo, coming near and then jumping far away like swimming fish. A bright green light swam in front of Zuemo reflexively. Zuemo reached out with a hand. When the green light came into contact with Zuemo's hand, a slender flow burrowed into his mind. This slender flow contained great amounts of information that was hard to comprehend, profound and unpredictable. What was most wondrous was that thread of vitality within it. This thread of vitality was weak, but the presence was powerful and ancient. That wasn't right. There seemed to be a voice in his mind. As though he was possessed, Zuemo relaxed his hand and that bright green light disappeared within the ocean of light like a fish. Zuemo shook his head and wanted to clear his mind. This world of light was like a fantasy realm that he did not know what to do with. Fortunately, he remembered everything that Wei had told him previously. Soul-setting divine light. He needed to find soul-setting divine light. Was the soul-setting divine light hidden among these lights? Zuemo thought as he searched the lights. He saw a deep red light, and when his mind moved, that deep red light flew towards him. Zuemo reached out and touched the red light. A burning and ferocious energy quickly spread up his arm. Zuemo felt as though his body was burning. For some unknown reason, the feeling of wrongness increased. He released his hand and the red light instantly swam away. Zuemo gradually started to understand. If he thought of any light in his mind, that light would fly into his hand. What he needed to do was to find the soul-setting divine light among these numerous lights. Zuemo's brow creased. There were more than billions of lights in here. If he was to try them one by one, then it would be like finding a grain of sand in the ocean. There had to be a way. Zuemo sank into thought. He did not notice the lights had changed. You feel he can comprehend soul-setting divine light? Pu Yao looked at Wei and asked, even if there is the imprint, the difficulty would not be low. You have such confidence in him? Wei shook his head and said, I do not have confidence that he will succeed. He then said, the soul-setting divine light is extremely hard to cultivate, and even within the tribe in the past, the number of those who had successfully learned it could be counted on the fingers. The decline of the Sky Pool tribe was due to the loss of the soul-setting divine light. None of the 9 great divine lights are easy to learn. The divine lights have stringent requirements even though we do not know what requirements there are. Then why do give him the imprint? Pu Yao asked. Wei said calmly, in the past, its purpose was to leave behind a seed for the tribe. The Sky Pool tribe has long been gone, and I am just the gravestone armor now. There is no meaning in keeping it. So why can't I give it to him? Pu Yao didn't know what to say. This isn't our world now, Wei smiled, his voice deep and calm. The world belongs to him now. I smell danger from this, Pu Yao suddenly said. Wei smiled slightly. Of course, how can there not be any risk in learning such an ultimate skill? Just as Zuemo's brow was creased as he thought about what to do, the light in the surroundings suddenly moved. Unguarded, Zuemo wailed. A red light swept his body. He felt as though he was being boiled in a Dan cauldron, the fire burning every inch of muscle. The heart-boring pain came like a tide, swallowing him. How long has it been since he felt pain like this? Ever since he possessed Golden Crow Fire, normal flames could not harm him at all. The Great Day-Banded Flame was even more domineering and ferocious, providing further protection, a rare flame even among 6th-grade flames. It had been too long since he felt the pain of being burned. The pain of every part of his soul being burned had almost caused Zuemo to lose his consciousness. At this time, a cold and serene white light fell on his body. The burning pain suddenly became bone-aching cold like ice blades scraping against his bones. Zuemo's body uncontrollably trembled. What the motherfucking was going on? There was only this one question in his blank mind. The 9 great divine lights all have their wonders. The so-called divine lights are the lights that were born the instant the chaos formed. The soul-setting divine light is one of them, Wei said conversationally. Pu Yao was also deeply enticed by the secrets Wei was speaking of. He showed shock and disbelief, born accompanying the beginning of chaos. There are treasures like this? It really is a treasure. Wei nodded. The most precious part of the divine lights are related to this. Each thread of divine light contains various amounts of the information about the beginning of everything and the birth of chaos. Pu Yao's pupils suddenly widened as he murmured, "Impossible!" He couldn't help but show an yearning expression. There were patterns contained in the manifestations of everything in the world. It was the path that the strong always pursued. No matter if it was Xiuzhe, Yao, or Emo, once they had cultivated to a certain stage, their end goals were unusual in its agreement and similarity. That is the most precious part of the divine light. Wei did not explain and continued, but this is also the hardest part of passing on the divine lights. The divine lights were born with the birth of sky and earth, and is hard to understand, but it is also powerful. If the cultivator is not careful, they can turn to ash within the divine light. Pu Yao's expression suddenly changed. His blood eye narrowed to a blade as he said harshly, "You want to harm him?" He had thought there would be a possibility of danger, but hadn't expected it to be so dangerous. "Harm him?" Wei smiled faintly, "Just some danger. Remember, you and I are also on the boat. If the boat flips, I also cannot escape." Pu Yao's expression eased slightly. That was right. If Zuemo had an accident, Wei couldn't escape either. Right now, they were 3 ants on the same branch. No one could escape. "How much of a grasp of it do you have?" Pu Yao asked in an unfriendly tone. "No grasp at all." Wei seemed to not see Pu Yao's pot-black expression and said, "Right now, his 3 powers have merged to one, a state which is like those ancient forebears. If I have to say who is most likely to succeed, then it probably is him, even if the chance is small. Your actions are very dangerous. It has taken me into the danger as well." Pu Yao stared coldly at Wei, looking as though he was going to fight the moment they had a disagreement. If the imprint was not used soon, it would have dissipated. Wei's voice carried sorrow. He raised his head and gazed at Pu Yao. "If it was you, would you take the gamble?" Pu Yao was speechless. Wei was right. If this was him, he would definitely gamble as well. He knew just how valuable this imprint was. If this imprint could be traded, a big sect like Kunlun would be willing to pay any price. It was a priceless pressure. As the ancient tribes have disappeared, the paths of cultivation have diverged. I do not know if the soul-setting divine light is still usable, but I cannot sit idle and watch as it disappears. Wei sighed lightly. This is probably the last of the divine lights in this world. Pu Yao was still silent. Isn't it the same with your archaic wasteland sacrificial art? Could you bear for it to disappear? Didn't you think the same when you took him as your student? Wei looked in the distance as he murmured, "This is not our world anymore, but it was once our world. Would you or I be willing to leave nothing behind?" Pu Yao remained silent, as before. Countless lights continuously swept across Zuemo's body. Zuemo felt as though he was floating and sinking in hell, experiencing all kinds of feelings. Each destructive light ray almost destroyed him, and each vital life rays restored him. It was a cycle of life and death. At one moment, he felt at the top of the world, and then in the next felt worse than death. All kinds and types of light energies, each ray was different in effect, and the taste was naturally different. Zuemo felt as though he was a chicken about to be roasted as he was rolled around in all kinds of spices. Zuemo forgot about the soul-setting divine light along the way. These damned lights. Zuemo gritted and wanted to cry. He was unable to move at all. These rays of light were not under his control and did not show any of the friendliness there was at the beginning. What was worse was that no matter what ray was being shined on his body, his mind was always clear. This meant that he had a good taste of every ray of light. No more. Zuorimo wanted to shout for aid. There were billions of light rays in here. If he went through all of them, hell. This was definitely hell. Save me. Chapter 478, Divine Light. The deep of the cave was a patch of blackness as sparks shot into the air. It was as though the sparks traced the outlines of trees. The sharp hissing of the insects were piercing to the eardrums, and came in waves like the tide. But this shocking insect wave seemed to be stopped by an invisible barrier when it had reached a certain part of the rock and could not go any further. Xiozha with good eyes would be able to see this invisible barrier was actually a streak of black shadow. The black shadow was extremely fast and almost hard to catch with the naked eye. 10th grade's little face was covered with sweat. His figure did not slow down as he forcibly pushed back the insect wave. As his Ling power was used up, the suppressed insect wave gradually pushed near the entrance to the cave. Every time this happened, 10th grade would gather his energy and push the insect wave back. The two sides seemed to be playing tug-of-war. After this continued for 4 hours, 10th grade showed weariness on face. The corpses of insects had accumulated and packed on the ground. Threads of black energy rose from the bodies of the insects and burrowed into 10th grade's body. Every time this happened, 10th grade would become refreshed and his attacks would become stronger. At an area extremely close to the mouth of the cave, Lul, Black was timidly laying on a piece of rock. Its pair of antennae waved occasionally. If there was the slightest movement, it would rapidly crawl outside the cave entrance. The little ones had gotten the pattern. These insects definitely would not take one step outside the cave. In the beginning few days, the little ones would accompany 10th grade into the cave, but Lil, Pagoda and Li, Fire quickly got bored and left to play outside. Only Lil, Black was left to stand guard as though he was very loyal. Of course, loyalty aside, if the situation seemed to be going in a bad direction, Lil, Black would turn and run, not caring for 10th grade at all. Just like this, 10th grade made trouble day and night for the insects in the cave. Su Ling City seemed to resume its peace. The restless business people could finally rest their hearts. Everything seemed just like before, but everyone understood the sky above Su Ling City had changed. The battle between the Tian family and Turtle Island hadn't just shook Su Ling City, all of Cloud Sea Jie had been rattled. When the other factions discovered an unfamiliar battalion had suddenly charged into the ranks of the top 50 and take the 32nd position, the first thought that occurred in their minds was, who were these people? The Su Ling Battalion, the number 1 battalion of Su Ling sect, was ranked in the 80s, and the two positions were not on the same level at all. Even though Su Ling sect and Turtle Island had not had any conflict, but the silence of Su Ling City in this incident became the synonym of retreat in many people's eyes. In the eyes of the local powers of Su Ling City, the comparison of strength between the two was clear to see at a glance. At the very least, they did not believe that Su Ling sect could destroy the Tian family so easily. The larger powers of Cloud Sea Jie maintained great caution towards this Turtle Island that had risen up. Looking from the intelligence reports they had gathered, Turtle Island's battalion was outfitted extremely well, with things like the Blue Soul Cold Light armor. Their equipment was completely of 4th grade talismans and caused many battalions to drool. Cloud Sea Jie was not a rich place. But a 4th grade outfit like this would not be extraordinary, and there were many that could buy it. If it was thousands of sets, then only the most powerful factions could afford it. What really caused jealousy were the unknown golden swords in their hands. Those were talismans above 4th grade. Talismans above 4th grade? Wasn't that 5th grade? When did 5th grade talismans become a part of regular equipment? When they saw this, many people's first response was one of disbelief, but the following reports all provided the truthfulness of this information. This instantly caused a great furor. 5th grade talisman. 5th grade talisman was almost another term for Jindan. Those that had the purchasing power and could forge 5th grade talismans were basically all Jindan. There were no Ningmai that would go and buy 5th grade talismans. Even if they could, they would definitely not bring it out unless they were at death's door. Wealth was a crime. Any person with experience understood this. Fifth-grade talismans were enough to motivate people to kill and steal. They had never heard of a battalion where every person possessed a fifth-grade talisman. When the news of the fifth-grade talisman spread, there were many battalions that had devious thoughts, but the ranking of 32 for Turtle Island Battalion made them wary. Any battalion that entered the top 50 were not to be easily provoked. But undoubtedly, many more people started to notice this strange faction with an unknown name. However, none of them would ever expect that an enormous alligator had made its way into this remote little pond that was Cloud Sea Jie without a sound. The divine light was like hell. All kinds of rays of light swept to and fro on his body. He switched between euphoria and misery. He switched between befuddlement and clarity, and tasted all the experiences of life. Pu Yao and Wei did not dare to breathe as they stared at Zhuo Mo, who was shrouded in the light, with nervous expressions. Wei might have spoken with openness and bravado, but when it came to his own survival, it would be false to say he was not nervous. 10 whole hours passed and nothing about Zhuo Mo changed. Wei felt slight regret. The divine light was hard to comprehend. No one from the Sky Pool tribe had been able to comprehend it, which was why the imprint had been passed on to him. Zhuo Mo wasn't one from the Sky Pool tribe. But it was too late to say anything now. He could only pray that Zhuo Mo could comprehend the divine light. Otherwise, none of them could escape the divine light. Suddenly, the lights around Zhuo Mo became dim. In about 10 breaths, all light disappeared, and his surroundings quickly became black and a void at a rate visible to the naked eye. Joy came onto Wei's face, but he feared disturbing Zhuo Mo and did not dare to breath, the nervousness on his face increasing. The space one zhang around Zhuo Mo completely turned to a void, a bottomless black void. Within the black void, Zhuo Mo suddenly opened his eyes. Boom! A vast and authoritative presence swept furiously like a gale. Pu Yao and Wei made muffled grunts in unison. Their faces were white as they stared in shock at Zhuo Mo's eyes. Zhuo Mo's eyes flashed with an abnormal light and were like stars in the black void. This pair of eyes did not hold one thread of emotion, like a high-up deity looking down at the mortals. Pu Yao snorted coldly, the light in his bloody eye rising as he moved to retaliate. At the side, the shock that was on Wei's face was flushed away by excitement and ecstasy. At this moment, the light in Zhuo Mo's eyes disappeared completely and showed their original appearance. Zhuo Mo felt he had had a very long dream. The rays of light in the dream had been so real, but when he thought about it, he could not remember them. There was no soreness or pain in his body, which was as good as when he started. What happened? He asked with puzzlement. Congratulations, Wei said excitedly. Zhuo Mo turned around and couldn't help but pause when he saw Wei. It was the first time he had seen Wei so excited. For some reason, his mood also became better. Congratulate me on what? Zhuo Mo couldn't help asking. He furrowed his brow and said puzzled, I just had a very scary dream. Even though he couldn't recall it, but the thought of scary was deeply rooted in his mind. Thinking about it now, he couldn't help but shudder. Right, wasn't I comprehending that soul-setting divine light? Zhuo Mo recalled what happened before and his eyes suddenly widened. He exclaimed, was I just… Yes. Wei couldn't disguise the joy on his face, so congratulations. Zhuo Mo stilled and asked in response, I succeeded? You completed the most difficult step. Wei's tone was excited. In the past, I had speculated only someone like the Ancient Ones, with the 3 powers merged, could comprehend the divine light. I had not expected it to be so. Under Wei's guidance, Zhuo Mo found the ray of divine light in his body as expected. But when he found the divine light, he was greatly disappointed. This divine light was as thin as a hair, gray, and had none of the dazzling light of a divine light. Zhuo Mo couldn't help but frown. This is the divine light? Wei saw Zhuo Mo's expression and knew what this guy was thinking. He wasn't angry and said with a smile, this is the soul-setting divine light. Don't judge it by its appearance. If you can comprehend its true meaning, its appearance will change. Feel it well, all the wonders of the soul-setting divine light is within it. I cannot teach you the remainder, you need to comprehend on your own. Zhuo was very discontent at Wei's irresponsible attitude. What about Jinji? Didn't you say that the soul-setting divine light can make Jinji? I was aiming for the Jinji. Wei, it is wrong for you to trick me so, you're making it a habit. Wei didn't know to laugh or cry. Try to recall it, the wonder will naturally occur. There it really is. Zhuo's mind moved and several unfamiliar spells appeared in his mind. He was slightly shocked and carefully inspected these spells. He said, "Good, you didn't con me. Wei, I'm telling you, don't copy Pu and make a habit of tricking me, becoming a villain." At the side, Pu Yao's face became green. Wei roared with laughter and his heart felt light. This divine light imprint had been a sickness in Wei's heart. In the past, there had been high hopes for him. The tribe had thought that he would be the person most likely to comprehend the soul-setting divine light in the tribe, so this imprint had been passed on to him. Yet no matter what, he could not comprehend the divine light. When the danger had come, he had sacrificed himself, turning himself into the spirit of the artifact. He was forged into the gravestone armor, though a secret method to help the people protect the tribe. Yet the tribe still was destroyed later on. Personally seeing the last clansman die, Wei's heart ached. The gravestone armor had passed through the hands of many strong people. His owners had all been very powerful people, but he had never revealed the greatest secret, soul-setting divine light, because he knew they could not cultivate it. But this imprint was like a chain of fate binding his heart. He only felt relieved of the burden today and was unspeakably happy. The soul-setting divine light that intimidated all of the primitive era once again saw the light of day. Suddenly, he was full of anticipation towards the future. Chapter 479, Triumphant Progress. Frightened out of his wits, Gu Minggong did not struggle as Zhuo put on the Jinji. His worries gone, Zhuo went with Gu Minggong to his home, scalped the inside and out to get a small sum of wealth. There wasn't any blood in the pitiful Gu Minggong's face. In reality, he had not recovered from his shock. The other's cultivation was clearly not in Jindan but was able to put Jinji on his body. This upended all the conventions he knew. He also did not resist the series of what could be called complex missions that Zhuo sent down. Teaching forging, preparing materials. Gu Minggong was an old-timer and had seen everything. He was clear to his situation. Captives never had the right to bargain. If the other was not desiring his skill in forging, his bones would probably be cold right now. He was not unfamiliar with teaching. Due to his title of Seal Immortal, many people would frequently come to his home and ask for guidance. As to forging, that was his profession. However, when he entered Golden Crow Camp for the first time and looked at the densely packed crowd of forging Xiuzhi below, he couldn't help but be shocked. Only now did he readjust his judgment of Turtle Island's power. There were only rare factions that could possess such a large number of forging Xiuzhi, even the big sects did not have them. Feeling shock, Gu Minggong was shocked again. When he had taught to a point and told them they could try it out, the crowd below simultaneously showed their golden crow fire. In a flash, his eyes were dazzled by 2,000 golden crow fire flames, and the blood in his body froze. The spectacular scene in front of him surpassed the limits of his imagination. When was 4th grade golden crow fire an essential part of people's equipment? What joke was this? He muddled through the first class. He felt that he was an experienced and worldly person, but when he finally managed to recover from the shock from the first class and sorted his emotions out to start his second class, he received another blow. Many students came with the talismans they had just forged in search of guidance. Gu Minggong instantly felt better. Eager and hardworking students would always be preferred by teachers. But when he saw several of the talismans that came from the forge, the expression on his face froze. What formation was this? Hadn't seen it before. Didn't see this one either. This one, still hadn't seen it before. Embarrassment. Great embarrassment. The pitiful Gu Minggong's face was completely red and he wanted to find a hole to bury himself in. If the teacher was unable to solve a question from a student, He could generously praise the student for being very creative. But if he was unable to solve a number of student problems so early on, then that definitely was very awkward and shameful. Heavens, earth, spare me. He didn't know if they heard the wail in his heart, but the two masters came over to rescue him. Another muddled class. However, Gu Minggong found the two masters after class and asked them about those unfamiliar and strange formations he had encountered today. He was a smart person. Even though he felt very embarrassed by what happened today, he did not have an avenue of retreat. If he just retreated the slightest bit, what was waiting for him was a chop. No one would keep a captive that was useless, especially his exceptionally frugal master. No matter what, he needed to show his value to the best of his abilities. The more value he showed, the better his situation would be and the further away from death he was. He was quickly immersed and enchanted by these strange and wondrous formations. These formations were completely different than any formation he had learned before, but they held an unusual attraction that caused him to be greatly obsessed. And when he saw the true form of these formations, those beautiful yet eerie MO matrices, he was uncontrollably addicted and unable to pull himself away. With the addition of Gu Minggong, the deconstruction rate of the MO matrix progressed just as fast as the forging skill level of Golden Crow Camp. The situation of Turtle Island grew increasingly better. As Ma Fan, Lai Peng, and Nian Lu had completed their core formation successfully, it meant that Turtle Island started to enter the era of Jindan. With them, Turtle Island had more than 6 Jindan. The two masters of Golden Crow Camp, because of the benefits they had received from communicating and discussing with Gu Minggong, felt the signs and entered seclusion to aim for Jindan. What was most unexpected was Chun Yucheng. When he had been raising ling beasts used for ling plant farming, he coincidentally comprehended a completely new husbandry spell called the Wi 10,000 Beast Body Rearing spell. His ling power exploded in a short time and he started his seclusion without a sound. Guard Camp was in a complete transformation. Ever since Pu had lost the bet with Wei, Guard Camp that had been once directed by Pu Yao had landed in Wei's hand. In terms of MO cultivation, Pu Yao really wasn't Wei's opponent. The Great Day Hardship Guard that Pu Yao put so much effort to change was taken by Wei. He changed a few places and that caused the power of the scripture to grow. In addition, Wei's greatest accomplishment was to successfully change Shu Long and Wen into battle generals. The methods of MO battle generals were completely different than the other two races. Wei's previous owner was a very powerful MO battle general, yet what was unexpected to everyone was Zhua Mo was the best MO battle general. Zhua Mo seemed to innately understand how to merge everyone's power together. Shu Long and Wen were far lacking compared to him in this area. Everyone collectively opposed the idea of Zhua Mo's leading the charge at the front lines. Shu Long and Wen were furiously cultivating so they could prevent Zhua Mo from being at the front. Benefiting from the explosion of income on the island, Zhua Mo waved his hand and got all the materials and jingsher that Guard Camp needed to make MO weapons. The present Guard Camp had exchanged their muskets for cannons. Wei was feeling very good, so naturally Pu Yao was extremely discontent. The proud Pu could not accept losing Guard Camp. But he stood by his bet and he definitely could not do something as demanding to take it back. In his mind, Guard Camp wasn't anything, but he could not let go of losing to Wei. When Wei changed Great Day Hardship Guard and made MO Battle General Cultivation as his first accomplishments, Pu Yao was furious. In the past, Wei had said with a straight face that he did not understand. So this guy had nefarious aims long ago. Knowing he had been tricked, Pu Yao did not show it, but held the hatred inside. Pu Yao quickly found a solution. Go to 10-finger prison? Zhua Mo was slightly puzzled, but when he thought it had been a long time since he saw Nanyu, Song Zhe, Mingju Zi, and the others, he happily agreed. Okay, let's go see. The human and the Yao came to 10-finger prison. The wasteland beast chessboard was just like before, but there seemed to be less people and it seemed quiet. Zhua Mo quickly found the trio of Nanyu, Song Zhe, and Mingju Zi. When the three saw Zhua Mo, they were overjoyed and came over to greet him. However, their eyes were more curious about Pu Yao. The strong presence of Pu Yao was really too obvious and made the trio's hearts shake. Zuemo was slightly shocked. Pu Yao had shown his true self. This was unlike his usual behavior. What did this guy want to do? But pushing aside his puzzlement, he introduced, "This is Pu. Pu Darren, good day." The three said as they bowed together. Pu Yao smiled slightly, "Greetings to you three." Pu Yao was peerlessly handsome with a thread of evilness. With this slight smile, he was like the rose that bloomed in the dark night, scary but enchanting. The three had never seen such a smile before and couldn't help but be stunned. Nan Yu also showed a rare blush. Zuemo felt even more puzzled. Pu Yao wasn't normal today. But Zuemo quickly threw this thought to the back of his mind and asked how the trio was doing lately. The three had been doing very well lately, especially in the area of Yao arts where they improved rapidly. In order to increase their ability to help each other, Nan Yu and Ming Juzi all moved their clans to the lands of the Gray Clan so they could help and support each other. The three thought of themselves as the students of Shao Emogu, advancing and moving together. As the trio increased in strength, the strength of their clans also increased. The lands of the Gray Clan was remote and there were no other factions. Their lives were becoming better. However, the three could not disguise their worries. Upon closer inquiry, Zuemo finally learned that the state of the Yao was not very good recently. After two major core, Fierce Fire and Ice Frost, were destroyed, Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia truly became a meat grinder that was soaked in blood everywhere. The three factions continuously fought, continuously changing the territorial boundaries, seesawing back and forth. The battles were fierce and the losses on the three sides were huge. Just a few days ago, a troop of Xiozha had appeared without any warning in the innermost area of the Yao territory and caused great damage. Even though this troop was killed in the end, but they had done great damage. They had found after the fact that these Xiozha had made their way through an unknown chaos rift. But this incident caused great terror in the Yao world. Even though the battle at the front lines had never stopped, for most Yao this did not affect their lives. The cruel truth had smashed their naive thinking into smithereens. They found, in shock, that war was so close to them and could appear next to them at any moment. What was even more scary was that another small Xiozha battalion had appeared in another Yao Jie not long after. It was fortunate that this was a large Jie, so the troops stationed there were very strong and not a great deal of damage was done. But this caused the normal Yao that were already feeling unsafe to become even more scared. They could not even guarantee the smallest Yao Jie had been searched all over. No one knew if there were chaos rifts in the unexplored areas around them, leaving them insecure. Many families sent out people to search their surroundings and started a web-like search to destroy weaknesses that could exist. Very quickly, there was a clan that found an extremely hidden chaos rift 50 li from the family base. All the people of the clan were frightened out of their bodies and moved their clan away that night. Incidents like this occurred continuously in the recent days and a mood of terror spread. The three also had the same worries. The area they resided in was remote and no real powers in the area, so their living was very easy. Due to this, if Xiozha really invaded, they also lacked the ability to protect themselves. After the three finished speaking, Zuemo couldn't help but worry for them. Even though Nan Yu and the others were Yaoma, but they were much closer to Zuemo than normal Xiozha. Naturally, he did not want anything to happen to them. At this time, Pu Yao's enchanting voice sounded, "I have a solution." Chapter 480 Wind and Clouds Move. Qinghua Shui had been secretly monitoring Shao Emoji's movements after their battle. But after the war chess match, Shao Emogu seemed to have evaporated from the Yao world and his location was unknown. Many factions that were interested in Shao Emogu and put in great effort into their search but could not find even a trace. Who was Shao Emogu? No one knew. This genius youth that appeared out of nowhere was as dazzling as a meteor and just as mysterious. No one knew where he came from, no one knew who he really was, no one knew where he had learned those high-level Yao arts that seemed extremely ancient. He was like an unfathomable riddle. Among the younger generation of Yao, his power was definitely not ranked in the top. Every Yao youth could come up with a pile of names that were more powerful than he was. Up to now, he only had a prison-breaking battle, a battle arena, and a war chess matches. Compared to those great geniuses that had gone through hundreds of fights at such a young age, his accomplishments were much dimmer. But with these 3 battles, the name of Xiao Mogu seemed to have a strange attraction that enchanted many people. Qinghua Shui, who had actually fought against him, felt this more than the great majority of people. She had been secretly paying attention to Xiao Mogu. The branch she was part of was a cadet branch of the Blue Flower family, but the power that she could use was not something a normal family could rival. Everyone also knew about the conflict between Xiao Mogu and the Blue Flower family. The attention she paid Xiao Mogu did not attract any curiosity in the clan. When Qinghua Zongshui had any news of Xiao Mogu, he would take it to his sister. But as Xiao Mogu's disappearance increased in length, many people gradually lost their patience. For example, Ji Liu. Qinghua Shui was very patient and she did not need to attend to countless matters like Ji Liu. She was just the most average young person in the family. No one knew she possessed astounding strength. Only her brother, Qinghua Zongshui, had guessed a part of it. She patiently waited for her target to appear. Her wait was finally repaid. Nan Yu, who had a connection to Xiao Mogu, led her clan to leave. This instantly attracted her attention. She immediately found an excuse to leave the family and secretly followed Nan Yu. Several accidents in the journey attracted her attention. Nan Yu seemed to have almost detected her a few times. This caused great shock in her. The power that Nan Yu displayed along the journey, especially that powerful Yao art, caused Qinghua Shui even greater shock. It was long an open secret that Xiao Mogu possessed great amounts of high-level Yao arts. This was also why many speculated that he had a great birth. She was amazed at the power of the South Sky Arrow art, but she did not have the thought to steal it. Her own Blue Flower was not lacking compared to the others' Yao art. She secretly arrived with Nan Yu to the base of the Gray clan. Not long after, Ming Juzi's clan also arrived. All the signs caused Qinghua Shui to feel excitement. Xiao Mogu must be planning something. Otherwise, why would the 3 clans gather together? Time slipped away. The 3 resided as neighbors and there was not any action. Qinghua Shui idly waited without any impatience. She found a residence located near the place the 3 clans were residing. The residents nearby were filled with goodwill towards this warm and quiet little girl. Some generous aunts would come visit occasionally to help, and she felt even happier than she did at home. This day, she woke up early just like normal. The residence was by the border of a forest with the building's doorway facing a river. The land of the 3 clans was on the other side of the river. She could see the other side without even leaving her door. On the other side of the river, a large group of people were gathered on the empty space beside the river. Qinghua Shui clearly saw that the leaders were Nan Yu's trio. They seemed to be practicing some kind of battle formation. Qinghua Shui's eyes lit up. Were they creating a battalion? Thinking about Xiao Mogu's golden battle general status, she didn't find it strange. However, she had watched the 3 clans for a long time and knew their situation. Of the 3 clans, the Gray clan was the strongest, but they were just a little clan. Nan Yu's clan only had 11 people while Ming Juzi's clan was also a little clan. It was impossible to make a battalion with these few people, but Nan Yu's group were clearly practicing battle formations. Qinghua Shui didn't know much about battle formations, but she could still see the power in it. A daring thought suddenly charged into her mind. Xiao Mogu had returned. For some reason, excitement suddenly appeared in her usually calm heart. Zuorimo did not think much of Pu Yao's great plan. He felt that this was Pu Yao acting out of embarrassment in hopes that he could wash away the shame of Wei taking guard camp away from him. A battalion? How many people did Nan Yu and the others have? What battalion could they make? Just nonsense. He could only feel sympathy for Nan Yu and the others. Pu Yao's great anger would probably vent on this little pitiful group of friends, but he didn't plan on stopping this. If Pu Yao's anger moved to him, he couldn't deal with it either. If Pu Yao started to fight Wei again, the person harmed would be him. If the tenants fought, the property damaged would still be the landlord's. So Zuorimo wisely closed his mouth, did not speak and did not oppose. Nan Yu, wait for Ji to get rich, G will make it up to you guys? So Zwa threw himself back to his cultivation with a mind at peace. The matters of the island were going smoothly and there was nothing he needed to worry about. He could finally cultivate with a peaceful heart. This was extremely difficult for him. After the three powers became one, his three powers could change among themselves, but there were weak and strong powers. Without a doubt, his Mo physique was the most powerful, followed by his consciousness, and his Ling power was ranked last. By now, he finally tasted the trouble that his shortcoming of Ling power brought him. The three powers were like a bucket of water made from 3 planks of wood. How much water this bucket could hold was not decided by the longest plank, but by the shortest. His pitiful Ling power was undoubtedly the shortest wood plank. If he could not repair this shortest plank, then no matter how much he added to the other 2 planks, there was no use. In reality, his Mo physique and consciousness had almost stopped growing. Zwa Mo knew that the culprit that had created this situation was his Ling power. The pitiful Zwa Mo held the black processing meditation mat in his right hand, a handful of Jingshi in his left, as he cultivated Ling power day and night in the hopes that he could increase his Ling power as soon as possible. Su Ling sect. What? Lu Zhen's expression changed dramatically. His voice became hoarse. How did the news leak? Huang Jie's face was ashen, his eyes terrified as he said in a trembling tone, I don't know. We've been very good at keeping it a secret. The people below never had the chance to interact with the outside. Then how did it leak? Lu Zhen furiously interrupted him. His forehead was filled with beads of sweat, his tendons showing. Don't know. Huang Jie's face was as white as paper as he mumbled soullessly. At this time, a disciple stumbled in. Bad news. Sect leader. Li San has been killed. Huang Jie's legs weakened and he sat down on the ground with a hopeless face. At this moment, Lu Zhen recovered a thread of calm. He knew what was most important at this time was not to make any measures to resolve this but to report to the top immediately. Zhong Ru walked with bare feet and closed eyes on the streets of Su Ling City like a normal Diana Xiao. The people that recognized him along the way all showed respectful expressions and silently bowed towards him. In a short time, Turtle Island had become the faction most respected by low-level Xiozha in Su Ling City. Compared to Su Ling sect that ignored everything else, the other factions that tried to oppress them, the friendliness that Turtle Island showed low-level Xiozha was something they had never seen before. Of the many Turtle Island cultivation classes, Zhong Ru was the most diligent. Diana Xiao were a very special group among Xiozha. Their obsession with spreading their Diana path far surpassed other Xiozha. Sword Xiao only sought the sword and many did not have a successor during their entire lives. They would only leave behind their knowledge to those who were fortunate. Seal Xiao were always immersed in the formations and seals, and did not have any interest in taking disciples either. Roaming Xiao mostly passed their skills from father to son, keeping their skills a family secret. What Diana Xiao wanted was to spread their skills to everyone. They were more willing to pass what they know. The Sky Wave Fist scripture that Zhong Ru first cultivated had been passed on to him for free from an old Diana Xiao. Even though the cultivation classes required paying fees, but the number of people that came to each class to learn far surpassed the number that were registered. He never sent them away and only serenely taught. That serene and calm aura was something even Yi Zheng, who came from a famed sect, couldn't help but admire. Even now, Yi Zheng could not understand why this Diana Xiao that did not have orthodox origins was even more powerful than the Shixiang from the temple. It wasn't that he was stronger in strength but in the presence of a Diana Xiao. Zhong Ru's lectures were extremely long, and usually spanned multiple days. The number of Diana Xiao that came to listen increased over time, and many came from other cities to listen. After class, Zhong Ru liked to stroll along the streets. For some reason, whenever he walked among this bustling tide of people, he could feel a strange movement in his heart. This strange feeling attacked his mind as though it wanted to tell him something, so he would do it often. Strolling quickly became one of his practices. But today, Zhong Ru stopped in his steps. At the opposite street corner, a group of people with treasure lights laughed and talked heedlessly. "Oh, this Su Ling city is pretty prosperous. The one that spoke was a male dressed in red robes. He looked around furtively and then his eyes suddenly lit up. That girl isn't bad. Where? Where? The other people instantly became excited and crowded over. There, that one, do you see, the one in blue armor? Those bones, the red-robed male drooled. The other people also looked with bright eyes. All right, don't make trouble. The people that had been drooling instantly withered. The one that spoke was a middle-aged person. His tone was cold as his gaze slowly swept the surroundings. What was strange was that his gaze seemed like the black ice at the bottom of the earth. It carried astounding coldness. Everywhere it passed, the temperature dropped and the ice was bone-achingly cold. A puddle rapidly turned to ice. All the passerby in the surroundings were shocked and scattered in panic. The middle-aged man's gaze landed on Zhong Ru's body. Without any sound, a layer of white frost appeared on Zhong Ru's body, especially his eyebrows that were covered in frost. His brows suddenly trembled and the frost fell. Zhong Ru slowly opened his eyes. Chapter 481, Ruins. The two stared at each other. One was as cold as ice, the other calm and normal. The middle-aged person showed a serious expression and said coldly, I hadn't thought to find an expert like Sir here. This one is Ling Wei. Sir, please tell me your name. Zhong Ru. Zhong Ru calmly bowed in greeting. The two's gazes were still locked together. Ling Wei suddenly spoke, We have other matters, farewell. Finishing, he took his group and turned to leave. Zhong Ru stared at the backs of the group thoughtfully. Boss, that guy is very powerful? The red-clothed male asked probingly. Ling Wei snorted. Don't provoke that person. Hearing this, all the others were shocked. Even though Boss had not directly said the other was powerful, it was the first time since they arrived that he had cautioned them so. The red-clothed male curiously looked back and saw that normal-looking Diana Xiao was still standing silently. He couldn't see how he was powerful. He shook his head and pushed his puzzlement to the bottom of his mind. He was arrogant sometimes, but he did not lack caution. A person that caused such wariness in Boss definitely was not a normal person. Thinking about the goal of the trip this time, he suddenly asked, Boss, is he also? Ling Wei's expression did not change and his tone was as cold as usual. If he is, then he is. If he is not, then he is not. Then we. First, we find a place to reside. Zuomo's cultivation was disrupted because many non-local Xiozha came to Su Ling City. More accurately, many experts had come. Experts? These days, those that could be considered experts were at least Jindan Xiozha. The abnormal situation of many Jindan coming into Su Ling City suddenly instantly aroused everyone's caution. Supposedly, several fights had broken out already in Su Ling City. The participants were Jindan and there were many casualties and injuries. Even the Turtle Island cultivation classes were affected. Many low-level students did not dare to come to class. For any local power, the peace in the surroundings was something they needed to maintain. Any kind of business required a peaceful environment. The flood of experts became the problem they had the greatest headache about. These people either were alone or arrived in small groups. Most of them did not have good tempers, and killing people in anger became as common an occurrence as eating. They were a very unpredictable variable in public safety. However, Zuomo had never thought about maintaining the public safety of Su Ling City. That was something for Su Ling sect to look after. But from this unusual situation, he felt an incoming storm. What had happened? What could cause so many Jindan Xiozha to run to Su Ling City? Su Ling City wasn't a large city and did not have any outstanding products. Zuomo decided to get to the bottom of this matter. The mood on Turtle Island suddenly became tense. The island protecting formation was activated again and the cultivation classes were halted. News continuously came from Su Ling City. In a short 2 days, the number of Jindan in Su Ling City passed 100 people. This was a number that made everyone feel a chill. 100 Jindan were enough to flatten Su Ling City. The Jindan were still coming in. After 7 days, the number of Jindan in Su Ling City reached an astonishing 500. The fighting inside Su Ling City increased. People frequently fought on the streets of the city. The damage caused by fighting between Jindan was astonishing. Suling City was damaged all over the place. No one dared to stop them. Low-level Xiuzhe were as insignificant as dust in front of this kind of battle, and no one cared about them. Large amounts of low-level Xiuzhe started to flee Suling City. Many low-level Xiuzhe, especially the students of Turtle Island cultivation class, ran to Turtle Island in hopes of protection. Zuo naturally would not reject free labor that came to his door and took all of them in. He hadn't expected his action to cause a ruckus among low-level Xiuzhe. In the eyes of others, low-level Xiuzhe could be found everywhere and did not hold any value. Who would protect Xiuzhe that were worthless? The reputation of Turtle Island had been very good among low-level Xiuzhe before this. Hearing that Turtle Island was willing to accept low-level Xiuzhe, those that were unwilling to leave took their families and ran to Turtle Island. Zuo accepted these masses well. In any case, Turtle Island was very big and could hold them. But when Zuo saw Su Zhengwei, he couldn't help but pause and hurriedly gave a greeting. "Isn't this Elder Su? What wind has blown Elder Su over?" Su Zhengwei's old face blushed. "This old man has come to enter Island Master's faction." Zuo paused again and then said with a smile, "Elder Su, please don't joke." It was normal for low-level Xiuzhe to join him, but Su Zhengwei was a Jindan and shouldn't have any problems with survival. "This is no joke." Su Zhengwei gave a long sigh. Island Master must not know how they have ruined Suling City. Those people have been fighting and killing all day and they don't know how to stop. This old man almost died a few times. Seeing the fragility of Su Zhengwei, Zuo finally learned that the situation was much more serious than he had imagined. He hurriedly said, "Come in, let's talk inside the island." After he finished speaking, he ushered Su Zhengwei into the island. The fighting inside the city had been very serious. Previously, Shang Weiming had been lightly wounded, so Zuo got him to return to the island. Therefore, up until now, he did not know what these people had come for. Su Zhengwei was a Jindan and definitely should know a bit regarding this. As expected, as Zuo inquired closely, the matter slowly floated out of the water. Someone had heard there was the ruins of an ancient Sun tribe Shenhal near Suling City, and was sleeping in the sea near Suling City. At the start, those that heard the news all snorted at it. In these days, it would be unusual if stuff like ruins, treasure hoards, and immortal residences did not show up several times in a year. The rumors would be heavily inflated as though they were really real. But after losing many lives, everyone would discover it was a con. But as the news spread, more details were revealed and gradually attracted the attention of those watching. When a damaged Sun tribe mask suddenly appeared in a large auction house, it caused everyone to believe the rumors. Many Xiuzhe skilled in forging were invited to certify this damaged ancient mask. When each person returned, they all marveled at the mask without exception. The ancient presence on it caused every Xiuzhe that came into contact with it to feel shock. Another rumor was also floating on the market. The biggest sect in Suling City, Suling Sect, had been secretly searching for these ruins during these past years. This mask was also one of their spoils but had been leaked onto the market for some reason. Supposedly, there was a greater power behind Suling Sect, and Suling Sect had been founded just to find and explore these ruins. All kinds of news quickly spread through the entire Cloud Sijia. For some unknown reason, after Zuo heard Su Zheng talk, he instantly felt that the rumors were true. Because Su Ling Sect's actions were too strange. He had been fighting so fiercely with the Tian family, but Su Ling Sect had not acted at all. Any local power that was ruling the surroundings definitely would not ignore this unless their attention was not on maintaining their power at all. Learning the cause of the matter, he finally understood why so many Jindan were gathering at Suling City. Is there no response from Suling Sect? Zuo suddenly thought of a question. None. Su Zhengwei shook his head. How can they react? With this many Jindan? Right now, many people are talking about going to Suling Sect and pressuring Lu Zhen to reveal the location of the ruins. Zuo thought that it was correct. Suling Sect was not a match for this many Jindan. They were most likely seeking aid from the power backing them. How many Jindan have come? Zuemo asked. Probably about half of the Jindan of the entire Cloud Sea Jia. Su Zhengwei said, any that have any ambition would not give up this chance. Any tribe with the sun as its totem would be a powerful tribe. If they can really get 1 or 2 talismans, then they've struck it rich. Zuemo did not speak. People died for wealth, birds for food. This principle did not change over time. Danger was everywhere under the Cloud Sea with all kinds of powerful Yao beasts. So what if they were Jindan? They would also be unable to retreat unharmed. After experiencing the sealed extinction battlefield, no one was clearer to the dangers of ancient ruins than Zuemo and his group. If the strange corpse, wasn't there, then it was unknown if they could have walked out of there. Thinking to this point, he couldn't help but think of the strange corpse. Did the strange corpse find his birthplace? As his thoughts turned in his mind, Zuemo decided to not participate in this matter. The enormous turtle island was rich in its products, and he did not have to worry about making a living. He would wait a few months and see if he could buy water cloud embryo to heal a gay. If he couldn't buy it, then they would have to make a trip into the Cloud Sea themselves. Treasure was good, but he would not unnecessarily gamble with his life over it. Seeing that Zuemo was disinterested, Su Zhengwei couldn't help but be puzzled. Is Island Master uninterested? Too many people and too little food. Look at the amount of people, there is no place for us, Zuemo said unconcernedly. He then comforted Su Zhengwei. Elder Su, don't worry, rest your heart and stay on the island. Zuemo had interacted with Su Zhengwei and knew this was an honest person. Learning the cause, Zuemo closed the formation and buried his head in cultivation. The low-level Xiozha on the island also settled down and the cultivation classes started again. After arranging everything and releasing a breath, Zuemo suddenly saw Lil Pagoda fly in front of him. The chubby Lil Pagoda's eaves were like round fleshy paws, and increasingly adorable. When it saw Zuemo, it seemed to see a savior, its little fleshy paws grabbing on Zuemo's clothing. Good son, Daddy doesn't have time to play with you. Go play. Zuemo patted Lil Pagoda with affection. Lil Pagoda was extremely panicked, furiously pulling Zuemo's clothing and flying in one direction. Don't mess around. Zuemo scolded with laughter. He didn't expect Lil Pagoda to pull even harder and detected that something was wrong. His heart suddenly jumped. Had something happened? Lil Pagoda saw that Zuemo seemed to understand and hurriedly flew forward with Zuemo tightly following behind. Zuemo quickly came to the entrance of a cave. Chapter 482, Brutish Bird. When Zuemo reached the cave entrance, he heard a sharp shriek and his expression changed. Silly bird. He charged in without hesitation. Entering the cave, the lighting became dim, but for Zuemo it was as though it was lit up by daylight. There was a thick layer of insect corpses on the ground, but he did not care to look at them and dashed lightning fast towards the deep reaches of the cave. A short while later, Zuemo saw Silly Bird and his heart relaxed slightly. Silly Bird was facing off against an enormous insect. In a corner nearby, 10th grade was holding its sword as it furiously panted. It was at the end of its strength. When Zuemo's attention turned from Silly Bird and 10th grade to the enormous insect, he couldn't help but inhale sharply. This large insect was shaped like a small hill and wrapped in black armor that looked extremely hard. It had large limbs that were like that of a spider, each was extremely thick and had rows of slightly curved spikes extended outward, making its legs look as though they were covered in teeth. Zuemo believed that if even one leg swept its target, it would tear off skin and flesh. At the end of its legs, hooked bone spikes tightly gripped the ground. In front of these feet, the hard rock was like mud that was easily penetrated. The two eerie red eyes of the enormous insect stared at Silly Bird. It had a destructive presence that held a thread of decay came from its body. Zuemo had never expected that such a dangerous Yao beast was living on his island. At this time, Silly Bird moved. In the air, an afterimage flashed across Zuemo's vision like lightning, so fast he could not capture it. The sound of metal colliding. In the darkness, a ball of sparks shot out. The enormous insect wasn't an average Yao beast and was extremely alert. Its two front legs shielded its face and did not show any openings. The armor on its body was abnormally strong. Silly bird's claws that could easily penetrate talismans could not do anything to its armor. Silly bird was clearly angered by the opponent's hardiness. With a long call, her wings suddenly spread, her eyes burning as a red flush came onto the beak like it was dripping with blood. With a flap of her wings, she was like lightning. An even stronger burst of sparks blossomed in the air. The enormous insect clearly could not stand against it and was forced half a zhang back, the rock under its feet shattering. In a killing mood, Silly bird furiously attacked. Clink clink clink. The enormous insect repeatedly fell back, the rock under its feet continuously shattering and being powdered under the repeated blows. Ripples spread outwards with the enormous insect as the center. The body of the enormous worm continuously sank. Like it was a pillar of wood, it was being hammered into the ground. It finally showed hints of terror, but it was not so easy to escape a berserk Silly bird. Silly bird's attacks were like a storm, and the enormous insect didn't even have a chance to breathe, much less escape. If it wasn't for its freakishly strong armor, it would have died long ago. At the side, Zuo gaped with wide eyes. He had come with a panicked thought of rescue, but at this time, there was only one thought in his mind: this insect was pitiful. Of course, he pitied it but definitely would not rescue it. He was also drooling as he looked at the freakishly strong armor of the insect. An armor that could stand up against such ferocious attacks was definitely a treasure. If he took this armor and made Ling armor, he wouldn't even need to dodge normal flying swords. Treasure, treasure. At this time, a sudden change happened. The insect that had been on the defense all this time suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a ball of black energy. Silly bird was caught unprepared and was hit by the black energy. Silly bird's body suddenly froze, she lost control and dropped to the ground. Dreaming about the Ling armor, Zuo hadn't expected the insect to do this. He acted to attack when he saw the situation. Yet he hadn't expected to see Silly bird sway like she was drunk as she leapt up from the ground. Zuo was slightly reassured. It seemed that Silly bird didn't have a major problem. He looked attentively at the enormous worm. If it showed any signs of ill intent towards Silly bird, he would attack viciously. But the enormous insect also showed tiredness. That ball of black smoke probably was not something it could release easily. The enormous insect stared at Zuo and hissed from its mouth as its body retreated. It wanted to escape. Zuo instantly judged the insect's intentions. He decided to attack. How could he let such a treasure slip from his hands? Suddenly, a high and sharp shriek came from beside him and penetrated his ear. Zuo's expression changed and reflexively covered his ears. The rock on the cave ceiling started to fall and the fear the enormous insect held grew. Silly bird attack again. Just like before, the enormous insect curled into a ball with its front limbs covering its face. Just as Silly bird was going to touch the insect's body, her diving attack suddenly turned into a snatching motion. Zuo looked with shock as Silly bird grabbed the enormous worm that was much larger than her, lifting it into the air like a condor grabbing a sheep. The enormous insect instantly panicked, its 6 limbs dancing as it hissed. Zuo seemed to see Silly bird smile viciously as she carried the enormous insect and then used her body as a pivot to swing the insect. The enormous insect was like a hammer that left the hand. With a howl, it hit the wall of the cavern. An enormous sound, the cave shuddered and rock rained down. Zuo had a feeling that the cave was going to collapse. No matter how hard of armor it had, the enormous insect was left stunned by this smash. It lay down in a pit of shattered rock. This was a pit that had been caused by its collision. Before it could struggle up, its body suddenly felt light. It was grabbed into the air again. Another throw. Rocks hit Zuo's body, but he didn't notice them at all. He gaped at this crazy scene in front of him. In a berserk rage, Silly bird threw the enormous insect over and over, and the insect was like a hammer that was swung again and again and then struck the ground, the ceiling, the walls, and the stalagmites. If one wasn't seeing it with their own eyes, no one could have thought that there was such terrifying strength in Silly Bird's not-so-powerful-looking body. Zuemo shook. At the same time, 10th grade that was gaping in the corner also shook. So scary. 551. 552. One should offend a villain before offending Silly Bird. Silly Bird? What kind of silly bird was this? This was clearly a brute bird. Pia. The freakishly strong insect body was not freakish enough compared to Silly Bird and was split into 5 pieces. Silly Bird finally threw away the insect legs and her claws with satisfaction, raised her bird head and stalked her female bird walk as she left. In the entire process, she didn't even glance at Zuemo. We are generous and won't argue with a brutish bird. It was impossible for non-freakish people to argue. Zuemo went to clean up the insect corpse with great self-awareness. Pitiful insect, didn't it just spit out a mouthful of black smoke? It was smashed to death. So pitiful. Darren. This is great. This is a wonderful thing. Gu Minggong rubbed his hands as he looked with bright eyes at the 5 pieces of the insect corpse in front of him excitedly. This is the first time the subordinate has seen such a large deep granite leaf insect. Is this the insect queen? Right. This is the insect queen. Zuemo knew that the insect was something good, but he did not recognize it, so he brought it to Gu Minggong's for appraised. He believed that with Gu Minggong's knowledge, he would definitely recognize it. Deep granite leaf insect? Deep granite leaf insects mostly live in dark and deep caverns. They are extremely reliant on earth energy. Normal deep granite leaf insects are a CUN long and each group will have an insect queen. What is most useful about the deep granite leaf insect is its armor. This is the famous black gold leaf armor. The excited Gu Minggong spoke quickly. Each black gold leaf shell is just a bit larger than a willow leaf. It naturally has exceptional defensives. With 300 pieces, it is possible to forge a black wave leaf armor that is 5th grade Ling armor. Zuemo thought of the dense layer of insect corpses in the cave and was instantly excited. So many corpses, there was hundreds of thousands. 5th grade Ling armor. Zuemo's mind was blown by this good fortune that had dropped out of the sky. Gu Minggong did not notice Zuemo's expression. He looked with a burning gaze at the 5 pieces of insect corpse in front of him, his voice filled with disbelieving excitement. This insect corpse is even better. Using this subordinate has the confidence to forge a 6th grade Ling armor which can rank on the talisman rankings. Such a perfect insect queen is almost unbelievable. 6th grade Ling armor that could go rank in the talisman rankings. Zuemo almost fainted. He had never worn 6th grade Ling armor. A 6th grade Ling armor that could go onto the talisman ranking? Would he become Jindan just by putting it on? This expert really has uncanny skill. Even able to dismember the insect queen, really powerful. Look at this cut, clean and without any hesitation. Gu Minggong's expression was intoxicated. Zuemo shook and returned to normality. He thought of a certain brute bird. On the yin-yang twin butterfly, 10th grade was completely naked, black energy shrouding his entire body. His eyes were tightly closed and clearly was at an important time. Threads of black energy continuously came out of his body and entered the black butterfly wing under his feet. What was strange was that the border between black and white was not pushing towards the white wing, but into the black. Each thread of black energy seemed to be nutrients for the white wing, nurturing it. Gradually, a light layer of white light appeared on the white wing. Dots of white light shed off the white wing and floated upwards. When it reached the same height as 10th grade, these dots of white light gathered into a ball to become a rice-sized ball of white light. When the ball formed, the speed it absorbed white light suddenly increased. The white light on the white wing was quickly absorbed and its body became the same size as 10th grade. 10th grade opened its eyes. Looking at the white ball of light, it showed rare joy. He sat with legs crossed and waited silently. Chapter 483, Eldershin. When 10th grade pulled a little person clad in white, who was about the same size as himself, In front of Zuomo's chin almost dropped to the ground. Please, master, bestow a name. 10th grade said gravely. Zuomo curiously looked at the little person in white. The little person in white seemed slightly embarrassed and hid behind 10th grade with a timid gaze. The little person in white was the same size as 10th grade, the face as handsome and exquisite, but the person in white had softer features than 10th grade. 10th grade's features were much harsher. This caused the two to have completely different presences. The little person in white gave off the feeling of being sunny while 10th grade presence was cold. After staring for a while, Zuomo still could not figure out if the little person in white was male or female. Zuomo pointed at the little person in white and turned to look at 10th grade. He is your brother. 10th grade's expression was stern and serious. Oh, so it was a male. Such a pity. Oh, why do I find it a pity? Then he is named Sunshine. Zuomo's poor imagination meant he really could not think of a better name. Sunshine. 10th grade tilted his head, his little face serious. He felt this name was pretty good. Many thanks for the name, master. Sunshine gave a sunny smile. The two quickly flew off and disappeared to play somewhere else. Zuomo shook his head and continued his plan of getting rich. In the cave, Gu Minggong looked at the insect corpses on the ground and his entire person seemed to be struck by lightning. Darren? The trembling in his voice was clear, his tongue seemed to be tied as he stammered out a question. Who killed all of these? Oh, my ling beasts, Zuomo said. He then asked enthusiastically, can these insect corpses be used to forge black wave leaf armor? Gu Minggong was stunned. Killed by ling beasts? Heavens, those were powerful ling beasts. Deep granite leaf insects were 5th grade ling beasts. Their hard armor was unable to be damaged by flying swords below 5th grade. Deep granite leaf insects basically had no weakness. They were not afraid of poison, fire, or cold, and they lived in groups, which made them extremely difficult to deal with. He picked up an insect corpse from the ground. This deep granite leaf insect had died long ago, and there wasn't a single mark on the outer shell. But when he opened the outer shell, there seemed to be a sword wound that went through the entire body of flesh. Such a powerful sword essence. Such a powerful ling beast. Gu Minggong recovered from his shock. Yes, it can be forged. It can be forged. This subordinate has never seen so many deep granite leaf insects before. Darren, you may laugh, but this subordinate has really had a fright. Hearing that the black wave leaf armor could be made, the rock in Zuomo's heart landed and his face was joyful. This could be used for many black wave leaf armors. Maybe each person could get one. Darren, have you explored the cave? Gu Minggong suddenly asked. Hearing this, Zuomo thought, was there something else in the cave? He hurriedly asked, no, what is it? Gu Minggong explained. Darren may not know that the deep granite leaf insect has a special characteristic. They like to consume earth metals to help them strengthen their armor. So deep granite leaf insects usually reside on top of mines. Darren may want to inspect the area. If this mine could be found, it would be of great benefit. Hearing this, Zuomo's heart was moved. For any power, mines were extremely important as it meant they had a steady income. No matter how rich a power was, if it did not have a steady income, this power would not be able to survive for long. Turtle Island had very good conditions, no matter if it was the ling fields, the cold silkworm cave, those were all very constant incomes. If they could have a mine, that would be the icing on the cake. Zuomo decided to explore the cave, and this incident also reminded him that there were many unexplored caves on the island. There were probably many secrets that he had not found. After he finished exploring this cave, he would definitely explore the entire island. The cold silkworm cave had not been completely explored. The inside was bone-achingly cold, which made it hard to travel in. Out of consideration for safety, Zuomo did not enter the deeper parts of the deep granite leaf insect cave alone and pulled everyone along to explore it. As expected, they found a vein of rock grain steel. Rock grain steel was 4th grade material and widely used in making all kinds of talismans, so it was highly expensive. Rock grain steel vein, tens of thousands of mu of ling fields, cold silkworm cave. Turtle Island was far wealthier than any other sect in Su Ling City. but only the few that explored with Swa-mo knew about the vein. There were many people on the island now and the situation outside was unstable. If the news of this vein was leaked, people would likely immediately attack. It was better to be low-key in this time. Su Ling sect was disturbed every day by Xiuzhe that furiously inquired to the location of the Sun Shan Hall. Lu Zhen and the others could not escape. Ah, when will the top send people? Huang Jie groaned, his face in a grimace. If it wasn't that the others were wary of the power behind the two of them, the Xiuzhe would have torn the two of them to pieces. Soon. Lu Zhen pretended to be calm. At this time, the oil lamp on the table suddenly exploded with light, and an authoritative voice sounded inside the room. Come forth to welcome. Lu Zhen and Huang Jie paused and then both showed overjoyed expressions. They flew out together. Lu Zhen took out a little jade chime and lightly tapped it twice. The long chime sounded in the entire Su Ling sect. A beat later, countless Su Ling sect disciples flew off the mountain with dignified expressions and in organized lines. The Jindan Xiuzhe that were all impatiently waiting opened their eyes wide to see what Su Ling sect was doing. Those that were smarter shifted their expression and thought of the sect supporting Su Ling sect. Was the power behind Su Ling sect about to show itself? Countless disciples lined up from Su Ling sect all the way to the outside of Su Ling city. They respectfully stood in 2 rows soundlessly. The ceremony was so heavy that all the Jindan in Su Ling city became grave. Lu Zhen and Huang Jie appeared at the very front of the line. Just as everyone was raising their heads in wait, a line of fire suddenly appeared on the horizon. This line of fire was not evident at the beginning, but in a blink of an eye, it magnified and covered the sun to burn the sky. The sky that had been blue lost all of its color. The burning fire swallowed the sky. The green grass on the ground withered at a visible rate and turned black. The rivers floating on the ground seemed to boil. Streams that were slightly smaller completely dried up. It seemed like the end of the world. All the Jindan that saw this scene showed shocked expressions. Those less brave felt their knees knocking together. There was only one word in their mind: Yuaning. Only a Yuaning could possess such a presence. The sky-covering flames seemed to find a vent and rapidly flooded towards Lu Zhen and Huang Jie. When it neared them, it manifested into 2 people. The one leading was an old person dressed on red robes and a youth was standing beside him. The sky that had been fiery red became blue again without any smoke. Disciple Lu Zhen greets Elder Shin. Disciple Huang Jie greets Elder Shin. Lu Zhen and Huang Jie respectfully knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times. Behind them, all the disciples of Su Ling sect knelt on the ground. The spectacle was extremely grand. Elder Shin's complexion was rosy and had a mole on his forehead. His gaze was sharp and fiery, and seeing such a scene he showed a complimentary expression. Not bad, you have done well. Even though accidents happen this time, but your service is greater than your offense. After this matter, you can return to the sect. Lu Zhen and Huang Jie was overjoyed. This had been what they were worried about the most, but hearing Elder Sheng's words, it seemed that the top would not pursue their mistakes this time and allowed them to return to the sect. What they had wished for so long was being fulfilled. The 2 couldn't help but cry tears and bowed again. Thank Elder for your beneficence. All right, stand up, Elder Shin said faintly. Yes. The 2 finally stood up. At this time, the young person next to Elder Shin stepped forward and raised his hands in congratulations. Congratulations, Shitty. The 2 didn't dare to slack off and hurriedly returned the greeting. Greetings to Li Shixiang. If Ning Yi was here, he would definitely recognize this was the Li Shu who had plotted against Turtle Island with him. In name, Li Shu was the Shixiang of Huang Jie and Lu Zhen, but his authority was much greater. Once the 2 returned to the sect, there were many places that they needed to rely on Li Shu, so it was naturally they did not dare to offend him. From beginning to end, none of them even looked at the other Xiuzhe in the surroundings, not even out of the corner of their eyes. Those arrogant and wild Jindan were completely silent. Yuanying Xiuzhe definitely could walk wherever they wanted in Cloud Sea Jie. Those Xiuzhe that had ran to Su Ling sect to pressure Lu Zhen all had ashen faces. If the other wanted to settle the score, no one would be able to escape. In front of Yuanying Xiuzhe, they had no power to resist. Jindan Xiuzhe could be defeated by being overwhelmed by a large number of people. On the battlefield, the death rate of Jindan Xiuzhe was not low, which was enough to show their vulnerability. But against Yuanying, this tactic was not effective. If there was a little bit of error, just the slightest opening, it was enough for a Yuanying Xiuzhe to escape. Due to this, the fatality rate of Yuanying Xiuzhe was extremely low on the battlefield. Only Yuanying Xiuzhe could kill Yuanying. Thinking about the other's overwhelmingly destructive presence, no one could gather any courage. There had been great speculation about Su Ling sect before, but no one had expected the person to come was a Yuanying. Those people also noticed what Lu Zhen had called this person. Had the power that sent this person have other Yuanying Xiuzhe? Sects that possessed Yuanying Xiuzhe were ones people needed to look up to. What kind of sect could have more than one Yuanying? The chaotic situation stabilized rapidly on the arrival of a Yuanying Xiuzhe. There were no people fighting on the streets, and everyone seemed to become harmonious and polite in an instant. Xiuzhe started to leave. They felt the hope was small and left. But many Jindan still stayed. They had been chasing shadows before, but as the Yuanying came, it only seemed to confirm the truth of the rumor. If it was not real, why would a Yuanying come in person? Chapter 484 Stage of Yuanying Zhuemo shoved a Ling replenishing Dan into his mouth and chewed on it, with a relaxed expression, as though it was popcorn. His hands did not stop, one after the other. The Ling replenishing Dan that were worth 10 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi apiece were repeatedly thrown into his mouth. There had been a huge amount of materials that they had taken from the Tian family, and from that there had been a large amount that had been forged into Ling Dan like the Ling replenishing Dan. Zhuemo had adequate wealth now and decided to allow everyone to use them to help them increase their cultivation speed. As the boss, Zhuemo naturally had an unlimited supply. He also found that no matter how much he ate, his body would not feel any discomfort, so he ate them as though they were snacks. Fueled by this feeding frenzy, the Ling power in his body continuously increased. Each Ling replenishing Dan turned into a stream of gentle Ling power once it reached his throat and quickly spread through his organs. Compared to absorbing Ling power from the outside, the Ling power in Ling replenishing Dan was much gentler and purer, so it could greatly decrease the amount of time Zhuemo needed to process and refine it. Normal Xiuzhe would have the problem of Ling power blockages caused by the impurities, while Zhuemo did not need to consider this at all. The Great Day Mo physique was very powerful, and he could tolerate a much greater amount than normal Xiuzhe. There was also a significant portion of the Ling power that would automatically turn into spiritual power or be absorbed into the Mo physique. Even so, the rate Zhuemo's Ling power increased was astounding. Zhuemo finally understood how the terrifying cultivation of the large sect disciples had formed. It formed from being fed large amounts of worldly treasures and Ling Dan. He was just a little power in a remote jie, and he could use so many resources to cultivate. The power that those large sect disciples could command was multiple times larger than his. How could a Xiuzhe that cultivated like this not become strong? Oh, these days were already pretty good. Zhuemo reflected on the world idly as he chewed the Ling replenishing Dan. Ling replenishing Dan were not rare on the island. Due to the bounty of materials, everyone's Dan-making skills had shot up. Even the most difficult Ling Dan could not stand against supply the abundant materials. The few that were the best at Dan-making could make more than 300 in one frightening go. He thought about when he had been forging the Golden Crow Dan at Wukong Mountain. That really sucked. Ague was silent, as usual. Next to Zhuemo didn't dare let her to eat anything like the Ling replenishing Dan. Ague's body was not well, and extremely powerful substances like the Ling replenishing Dan was akin to poison to her and could likely cause her body to collapse. The purple energy in Ague's body had grown again. Even Pu Yao and Wei could not understand this strange power, much less Zhuemo, who was much less experienced. But since he knew that the purple energy was beneficial to Ague, Zhuemo did not concern himself with it. I heard that there are 3 Yuanying in Su Ling City now. TSK, 3 yuaning. 3 yuaning? Really? Is there even 3 yuaning in Cloud CJ? You're joking. There probably is 3, it is a pretty big jia. If there isn't even 3, then it is sad. So the rumors about the Sun Shenhal ruins are real? Probably even yuaning Xiozha have come, can it be false? We're so close, if we can't even get one benefit, then isn't that a great loss? As he listened, Zuemo really could not suppress it. He took off the shoe on his foot and threw it at the people who were discussing the most. He cursed, "Idiots! You want Jingshi over your life? Be good and follow me, how many good days have we just had?" At this time, a serene voice inserted into the conversation. "It seems you are all very idle. Let's multiply your cultivation duties for today." Whoosh, everyone's faces became green. As expected, Gongsun Lung, Miss was staring at them from nearby, his eyes flashing with a cold light. This group instantly scattered. "These guys are really annoying," Zuemo cursed. "Each of them has their nose pointed at the sky, they really think they are the best in the world. These people are like this after having a few victories." Gong Sun Cha sat down. "I will go and have a heart-to-heart with them." Standing at the side, Ma Fan and the others heard the words, heart-to-heart, and their faces paled further even though they were already Jinden. "We need to be careful," Zuemo said in a low voice. "So many experts are gathered here, something is definitely going to happen." Gong Sun Cha's heart shook. Even though Shixiang seemed laid back, he knew that Zuemo was more perceptive than any of them. This quality had been proved by past events. Gong Sun Cha knew his best qualities and his shortcomings. He was a pretty good battle general, but he was not as far-sighted as Shixiang. He nodded. "I will arrange for a patrol." At this time, a fierce ripple of Ling power came from a distance. Zuemo's expression couldn't help but change. He blurted out, "Yuanying." Before he finished speaking, he flew into the air. At the same time, Wei Sheng and the others appeared next to him. Each person looked in shock in the direction of Su Ling City. The Ling power ripple had came from Su Ling City. There was 4-hour trip between Turtle Island and Su Ling City. The distance was not close. But this powerful and domineering Ling power ripple was so clear as though it was happening right next to them. Even Wei Sheng couldn't help but show shock. How terrifying would the Ling power collision be to produce such a strong Ling power ripple? How terrifying was the Ling power ripple that it could spread to such a distant place? Yuanying. It had to be Yuanying. Even though none of them had ever seen Yuanying before, they were sure. Such a terrifying Ling power collision was not something a Jindan could produce. This was the first time everyone directly felt the enormous strength of a Yuanying Xiozha. Gong Sun Cha suddenly took out the Sky Ray treasure lens and swiped his hand on the lens. The treasure lens instantly showed the scene at Su Ling City. When everyone saw what was on the lens, they all inhaled sharply. The members which had been restless just before had ashen faces and the restlessness disappeared without a trace. Su Ling City, which had been full of holes from the fighting between Jindan in previous days, was like a cake that had been bisected. The half that was near the cloud sea had flown away. Everyone was familiar with the streets of Su Ling City and were even able to mentally construct the streets on the other half. What was eerier was that the entire surface that had been cut was smooth as though it had been cut with a knife and had a glass-like sheen. Xiozha skilled in fire spells were able to recognize this was the glassy layer that would form after something was burned by extremely domineering flames. The cloud sea had quickly swallowed the half that flew away and disappeared as though nothing had been there before. There were 2 indistinct figures facing off in the sky. Was this Yuanying? This question was in everyone's minds. After the 2 faced each other for a moment, they left. One of them glanced in the direction of Zuemo and the others. Their hearts suddenly jumped. The other was warning them. Fortunately, the other did not show signs of attacking and his figure disappeared from the edge of the lens. When everyone returned to the island, many people had soulless expressions. The blow that had been dealt to them had been too strong just now. The power that the Yuanying had shown was truly terrifying. Su Ling City was 5 times the area of Turtle Island. In other words, if a Yuanying Xiuzhe was willing, they had the power to erase Turtle Island from the Cloud Sea. Gong Sun Cha bit down on his lips, his face slightly pale. We are not a match. This sentence caused him to feel great humiliation. His face flushed red, his eyes showing great shock and unwillingness. Zhou Emo knew that with Gong Sun Cha's pride, saying this meant they didn't even have 1/10 a chance of victory. He started to understand now. Experts like Yuanying were not something that could be faced using tactics but could only be dealt with on a strategic level. They had the power to destroy and travel through the void. They were not people that could be killed by relying numbers. Zhou Emo forced a smile. No problem, we won't enter conflict against Yuanying. Everyone sank into silence. They had been so confident before. Vermilion Bird Camp had won constantly. Even many Jindan had died under their charges. They had once presumed that they had become stronger. There had been people undergoing core formation successively, and their confidence had been unprecedentedly high. At this time, no one had the interest to speak. They finally knew how stupid their confidence was. They were sitting at the bottom of the well. Any one of the 2 Yuanying Xiuzhe in the sky was enough to destroy all of them. Everyone lost the interest to speak. Zhou Emo's sea of consciousness. Wei said, it seems that this experience has been a great blow to him. Pu Yao was unconcerned. A setback isn't a bad thing, just a Yuanying. You're right, just a Yuanying. Wei nodded. He went back to his job of teaching guard camp. He had found great amusement from this job. Just a Yuanying. The news about the battle quickly spread to them. One of the participants was an elder from Su Ling sect named Sheng. The other was the elder of one of the biggest sects in Cloud Sea Jie, Elder Yunhai Sheng. The having of Su Ling City had been drawn by the zither string of Yunhai Sheng's Cloud Sea Jade Pillar zither. In this battle, other than half of Su Ling City that had been erased, there were more than 20 Jindan that did not manage to flee in time, and were either turned to powder under the zither sound attack or to ash in the fierce flames. This caused many Jindan to leave Su Ling City of their own will after the battle ended. No one dared to go near Su Ling City again. The large formation of Su Ling City was completely destroyed. If they stayed on the island, it would be dangerous if they were attacked by Yao beasts. Yet Su Ling City's surroundings were only so big, and only had so many cloud islands were suited for habitation. There were many Jindan Xiuzhe that could not find appropriate places and started to fight. Some Jindan started to form groups and tried to use their numbers to get enough benefits. Quickly, people started to target Turtle Island. While Turtle Island Battalion was famed in Cloud Sea Jie, but Turtle Island was still an upstart in many people's eyes. They only had one victory and it wasn't anything significant. Turtle Island's wealth had long been spoken of. This caused many hearts to sway. Several batches of Xiuzhe quickly sneaked near Turtle Island. All Jindan Xiuzhe. The mood suddenly turned tense. Chapter 485, Fire Crow attacking the formation. So this is Turtle Island? The large man at the front looked at the roiling clouds, his eyes flashing. A good place as rumors say. Yes, yes. A small-framed Xiuzhe with a pinched mouth and round cheeks hurried to agree. Darren is wise. This island does not expose itself. This location is the best next to Su Ling sect. He suddenly lowered his voice. This subordinate used the hemp garment divination method to divine multiple times and, increasingly, I feel that this Turtle Island is in a good position. It is not far from the ruins, so if the ruins appear, we will definitely be able to detect the disturbance here. Oh, are you sure? The large male who was the leader changed expression for the first time. It is accurate from the divination. The man with the pinched mouth knew he could not put a guarantee on this kind of matter and said cautiously, however, the ruins were built in the ancient era and there are many uncertain variables, so this subordinate does not guarantee it. There have been several groups that have been circling around Turtle Island recently and must also be targeting Turtle Island. The large man showed a satisfied expression. And you have done well. They want to compete with me? They don't want to live. When he spoke the last words, his expression became vicious and full of murderousness. The pinched-mouth male was touched by the murderousness and his expression changed slightly. Darren's murderous intent was unrivaled. No wonder he was called the Butcher. The leading male was a famous expert with the name of the Butcher, Wei Li Tian. Wei Li Tian had become famed 20 years ago, the most merciless and cruel person, and his hands were painted in blood. His ranking was even higher than Ning Yi, in the top 10 of Cloud Sijia. He also gathered a group of fellows that were also cruel experts, and there were 5 of them that were in the top 100. The other people, though not as famous, all had Jindan cultivation. They traveled the wilds, killing people and taking their treasures, the most famous outlaws of Cloud Sijia. Their numbers were always maintained at 49 people. Being the 50th person meant being eliminated from the group with only one outcome, death. 49 people, all of them Jindan, all of them with their unique techniques. Many powers wanted to destroy them, but Wei Li Tian's group wasn't just merciless in their conduct, but also cunning and malicious. There were many battalions that had fallen at their hands, many of them with great fame. Wei Li Tian knew the advantages and shortcomings of his own troop. He never faced his opponents in open combat, always running around the enemy like a cunning wolf pack, charging when he saw the chance and then biting a piece off. He hadn't expected that even Axion did not recognize it. This caused him to smell the scent of danger. He suddenly smiled. Don't rush. Since so many people are interested in Turtle Island, then we'll let them explore first. The other people's eyes lit up. As the Xiozha increased around Turtle Island, the mood on the island gradually became nervous. A group of Jindan Xiozha roaming around Turtle Island produced pressure that caused everyone's nervous to tense. This wasn't 1 or 2 Jindan, but dozens of Jindan. In reality, Zuemo and the others did not fear Jindan. The island was strong in numbers and weapons, but after the number of Jindan surpassed 10 people, they started to feel enormous pressure. A group of Jindan was enough to decide the direction of the entire battle in small-scale battles. Battalions could easily defeat 1 or 2 Jindan, but when the number reached 10, this was a power that was unable to be destroyed unless they were faced by a similar number of Jindan. Everyone rejoiced that Zuemo had spent great effort in setting up the formation. It now became the defense that they trusted the most. The meridional Azure Ether formation that had been processed by Azure Ether was more than 10 times as strong as the Yin-Yang Thundercloud formation. What movements have these people made? Zuemo asked Gong Suncha. Gong Suncha's Sky Ray Treasure Lens was extremely effective and they were able to clearly see the situation outside the formation. Restless. Gong Suncha's brow creased and a thread of murderousness flashed. He missed that had just been dealt a blow by the Yuanying Xiozha instantly felt irritated when a group of flies flew over. Feeling the coldness in Gong Sun Shidi's words, Zuemo laughed soundlessly. Gong Sun Shidi was proud and unwilling to admit defeat. Even if the other was Yuanying, he was not willing to admit defeat. However, when he thought about it, Zuemo felt that he wasn't much better. Including eldest Shixiang, even though he didn't say anything, but he had been even more diligent in his cultivation the past days. He probably also wasn't giving up. At this time, an enormous explosion came from the sky. Boom! Fire crows charged at the island and activated the Yin-Yang Thunder Cloud formation. Countless silver eels danced and smashed onto the fire crows to crush them into pieces. Gong Suncha swiped on the Sky Ray Treasure Lens and saw a Taoist holding a gourd. There were blackish-red fire crows continuously coming out of the gourd. There were several people around the Taoist that were clearly protecting him. Gong Suncha's face became pot-black as he left without a word. Those that were familiar with Lil Miss knew, Lil Miss was angry. The sky above Turtle Island. Taoist masters' black fire ling crows are as extraordinary as expected. A Xiozha's gaze was fixed on the crows as he praised. He didn't know what those black fire ling crows were forged from, but they were not afraid of lightning. Every time they were struck by lightning, they would reform and continue to charge within the formation. The lightning would strike it to smithereens, and then it would reform again. The black fire ling crows seemed to be unable to die. The shocking lightning that had been so intimidatingly thick in the formation became thinner and the sound decreased. The number of black fire ling crows increased, and it seemed to become a black patch that was spectacular to see. The fire crow Taoist was extremely proud. He had harvested the black fire from the deep in the earth to forge these black fire ling crows using a secret method over 10 years. Today was the first time they were displayed in front of everyone. He had the intentions of amazing everyone. He suddenly shouted, "Burn!" The spell on his hands changed, and the fire on the fire crows grew. The black clouds were completely burned away by the fire. The yin-yang thundercloud formation was so easy defeated. There were cheers from the surroundings. Many people had shocked gazes and looked on with completely different attitudes towards the fire crow Taoist. The fire crow Taoist was even more proud, and greed floated into his gaze. The news of Turtle Island's wealth had spread rapidly in the past days. With his defeat of the formation in front, he would probably get some benefits. Thinking how his purse, which had been dusty for many years, was finally going to be filled, the fire crow Taoist's face became excited. Taoist is a masterful. After the formation is defeated, I will remember your service. The leading Xiuzhe gave the fire crow Taoist another push. The fire crow Taoist became alert and said, "Many thanks, Darren. Look at my fire chief crow." His expression became stern as he started to recite. An invisible ripple spread with him as the center. The black fire ling crows spiraling in the air seemed to smell something and became restless and violent. Pia pia pia. Fire crows exploded into balls of black flame. The exploding black flames merged into the bodies of the remaining black crows. The black fire ling crows expanded rapidly, their bodies becoming bigger, their claws even sharper with wisps of black smoke. The black feathers became even harder than before, the red patterns on them even brighter and clearer. On the forehead of the fire crows, a thread of black fire slowly pulsed. The number of fire crows rapidly shrank until only 30 fire crows remained. But the pressure given off by these 30 fire crows was even greater than the sky full of crows previously. Bottom, bottom, bottom. As though it was the sound of the heart beating, the flames on the foreheads of the 30 fire crows pulsed simultaneously. The feeling of pressure spread and floated past everyone's minds. Each person's heart uncontrollably tightened. Chapter 486, Lil, Fires. This fire crow Taoist's skill isn't bad. Wei Li Tian's expression changed slightly as he stared at the black fire ling crows without blinking. He was considering if he should recruit fire crow Taoist into his group. With the skill that the fire crow Taoist was displaying now, it was enough for him to earn a spot in this group. Axen did not speak, his eyes tightly locked on the intimidating fire crows. The group pupils were at full force, the fire crows in his eyes turning in balls of pulsing black flames. Each ball of black flame was pulsing at an unique rate, and the ling power in the surroundings was flooding towards them. It was truly frightening. Yet what was completely opposite of the presence of the fire crows was the abnormal calm of Turtle Island below them. This was an unusual calm. There was no movement in the view of his gray pupils. Even the azure light that had been barely discernible before had disappeared now. It was too calm. The others seemed to be ignorant that someone was attacking their formation, not reacting at all. Axion widened his eyes and didn't dare to blink in fear he would miss a detail. For some reason, this unusual calm quickly spread through the crowd. The Xiuzhe unconsciously stopped their breathing as though they were waiting for something. At this time, Fire Crow Taoist cast his spell and shouted, "Go!" The flames on the foreheads of the fire crows suddenly paused, their eyes glaring as they shot up. Their spread-out wings seemed to burn, the feathers turning rapidly to flames as the bright red patterns on the feathers turned to lines of red that mixed within the flame and added a touch of eeriness. They suddenly dove down. The air instantly was filled with fire. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The 30 fire crows were like arrows shot out a bow, giving off a long black tail of fire as though they were meteors coming from the sky. Just as the fire crows seemed to pass through the formation, the azure light of the formation flashed. A thin azure shell of light that seemed like an eggshell suddenly appeared. Xian's gray pupils were suddenly covered in a layer of gray mist. He almost burst out, this was it. When he saw the yin-yang thundercloud formation, he had found that an almost indiscernible azure light existed. He had perceptively noticed this azure light, that was so easy to be missed, and quickly judged that it was in reality a very powerful formation. But this layer of weak azure light had quickly disappeared as though it was a delusion he had experienced. But Xian believed in his judgment and also his gray eyes. He patiently waited. He knew that if it was a formation, it would definitely appear again. Only now when this thin azure eggshell reappeared, he finally saw its true appearance. This transformation had occurred extremely fast that most people were unable to react in time. Among many people's exclamations, the first fire crow hit the azure light shell. Boom! Like a meteorite from heaven, each fire crow smashed heavily on the azure light shell. The fire crows were like drumsticks, and the eggshell the drum. The enormous sounds of collision beat on everyone's hearts. The sounds spread explosively and many people's bodies froze, their expressions changing. The azure eggshell shook, the fire crows suddenly exploded into countless wisps of flame that spread out. Dong dong dong. The rapid sound of collision was like a drumbeat that intimidated with every beat. Transparent air ripples spread and was like blades cutting the flesh where it passed. No one had expected these small fire crows to be so strong. This wave of Fire Chief Crow caused the spectators' hearts to almost stop beating. Many people finally recovered at this moment and exhaled heavily. The last ripple spread and it became peaceful again. The flames that had exploded now spread and covered the entire shell as it burned silently. The Fire Crow Taoist had not expected the other's formation to be secure. The Fire Chief Crow he had such high hopes for had not succeeded. This caused his face to look slightly ugly. However, he was not panicked and his smirk floated at the corner of his mouth. The dominance and maliciousness of the Fire Chief Crow was not just this. Coming out of their shock, the spectators were puzzled. Why was the Fire Crow Taoist motionless? If he did not have more powerful moves, then come down. There would naturally be people that would go up. Why wasn't he willing to come down? Yet when their gazes landed on the formation on Turtle Island, their pupils suddenly contracted. Those black-red flames that had scattered on the eggshell had not weakened. They were still tightly glued onto the shell of light and were burning silently. Was it? Many people's eyes lit up. Zuermo raised his head. That wave of Fire Chief Crow had also made him jump. Zuermo had a move called Meteor Void Fire in the past that had been similar to this move, but his move was weak in comparison to Fire Chief Crow. As the 30 fire crows dove down, there was a feeling the sky had changed color. There was countless Xiozha in the world and all of them had their own secret techniques. This fire crow method appeared normal, but on further inspection, it was filled with unpredictable changes. That black fire wasn't normal, and if he wasn't careful, the other would succeed in breaking through the formation. Large amounts of black fire burned right next to the eggshell. Each bloom of fire was not large, but they did not extinguish. Zuermo furrowed his brow. He could detect that there were many corrosive powers continuously charging the meridional azure ether formation. The amount of Ling power the meridional azure ether formation was consuming had increased greatly. Based on this speed, the meridional azure ether formation would not be defeated, but the Jingshi would not be able to support it. Zuermo raised his head and gazed at the black fire burning on the eggshell above his head. At this time, a red shadow suddenly charged at the shell of light. Zuermo focused and was stunned. Lil fire. Almost at the same time, Lil Pagoda took control of the meridional azure ether formation from Zuermo's hands. What were these two doing? Zuermo's heart jumped and his expression changed slightly. These two mischievous guys could not be playful at this time. There was a huge crowd of Jindan outside. If the formation was open now, and the others took the chance to enter the island, then it would all be over. This was different than the attack from the Tian family last time. There were truly too many Jindan, so many that not even the battalions could defeat them. There was also a large number of low-level Xiozha on the island. They did not have any strength to protect themselves. If the enemy charged it, the outcome would not bear thinking. Zuemo shook. Yet before he could stop them, what happened stunned him. Lil Fire's round and bouncy body was like a sticky rice bun that pasted itself onto the shell of light. Its entire face seemed to be pressed to the inner wall of the shell as it looked yearningly at the flames outside the shell, as though it saw something delicious and was drooling. Zuemo almost thought his eyes were not working. He rubbed his eyes hard and made sure what he saw was not an illusion. This guy was really drooling. The following scene once again surpassed Zuemo's limits of understanding. Blocked by the shell of light, Lil Fire's body rolled and it aimed its butt at the flames on the outside. Pooh, a light sound, the flames outside the shell turned to a line of fire that burrowed into the orifice of Lil Fire's behind. Zuemo grabbed his head with his hands and turned to stone. Oh heavens! What was this? He suddenly recalled how Lil Fire would sprout a thin line of fire whenever he would squeeze its round body. When he was bored, Zuemo would frequently do this. As he squeezed Lil Fire's tender and bouncy body, bursts of flame would erupt and, being interesting, he used it to relieve his boredom. But now he saw that Lil Fire's orifice that sprouted fire was crazily sucking in flames. Zuemo felt his world was crumbling. The people beside him that had been brimming with murderousness were stunned. Such a strange scene clearly surpassed the limits of understanding for normal people. Having absorbed one thread of fire, Lil Fire gave a happy sigh and then it rolled along on the inner wall of the shell to the next fire. Everywhere Lil Fire passed, the flames on the outside turned into lines of fire and entered its orifice. Every time this happened, the formation would ripple lightly. This was because Lil Pagoda was working together with Lil Fire. The two were in great sync. Turtle Island was completely silent. Zuemo and the others below watched with raised faces as though they were rows of statues. The Fire Crow Taoist's eyes were half-lidded and seemed very confident. He knew that the other people were also seeing the effects of his talisman. He was patiently waiting. The black fire Ling Crows had been forged by harvesting the black fire from the depths of the earth. This kind of black fire was called the Granite Fiend Fire. He had searched through mountains, continents, and swamps to find this in a deep and poisonous cave. He had really used great effort and spent much thought on forging the talisman. When this Granite Fiend Fire burned, it would attach itself and would not extinguish until what it was burning was ash. It was extremely malicious and specialized in attacking all kinds of space and Ling shields. He had forged 108 fire crows this time. Since the ruins event happened, he had planned to make his debut and thought of using the situation to become famous. Up until now, the development of events had not diverged from what he had predicted. The other did not know the power of the Granite Fiend Fire and allowed it to keep burning. They were really stupid. That was good. It was time for the Fire Crow Taoist, to become famous. The Fire Crow Taoist was full of ambition, waiting for the Ling power of the formation to be used up and for them to charge in. At this time, the small chatter in the surroundings entered his ears. Fire Crow Taoist couldn't help but frown. This group of people had cultivated to Jindan. How could their composure be so lacking? When he opened his eyes and his gaze landed on the shell, it was like someone hit him over the head and sparks spun in his eyes. The shell of light that had been covered in flame just now was completely bald and empty. Why was it like this? Granite Fiend Fire? Where was the Granite Fiend Fire that would not extinguish until it burned all to ash? He looked dazedly at the mirror-smooth shell of azure light, green and red crossing on his face. His gourd was completely empty. He thought about how much hardship he had endured to find that Granite Fiend Fire. He thought about the many years he had spent to forge the 108 black fire Ling Crows. He thought about his ambitions and becoming famous. But there was only that eggshell of azure light left in his eyes with nothing on it. Fire Crow Taoist looked dazedly on like this for a moment, and then he suddenly sprayed a mouthful of fresh blood, dropping out of the sky like a rock. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.